Chapter 440. Rules Adjustment. Last night, Qin Yun had expected that the inscription palace would adjust the rules to this extent. In this way, his absolute spirit, I would be useless. The reason why he was able to win so easily before was because he could see which vat the bird was in before placing his bet. And now, he had to place his bet first before activating the formation to teleport the bird. If it was under these rules, if he could still win in a row, then this was the ability to predict the future. The inscription palace could only admit defeat. The mustache man felt that after fine-tuning the rules, even if someone could see through it, it would be useless. Now, he could only rely on his luck. He said with a smile, because some friends are too straightforward and think that it's not satisfying only by 10 million. Today, we will also raise the upper limit to 50 million. If it had been yesterday, the inscription palace would have definitely suffered a huge loss. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi also felt that they would not be able to reap any rewards today. Now, everyone was very sure that Qin Yun could see through the water tank. That was why he knew beforehand and was able to obtain so many purple coins. With the change in the rules, Qin Yun could no longer win as easily as before. Today, some of the disciples of the king-level sects and bloodline aristocrat families had come. They were all sitting in luxurious carriages as they slowly drove along the streets. The big fish is here, Shui Tianzi said softly as she looked at the luxurious carriage on the street. The disciples of the bloodline aristocrat family were indeed extravagant. There were many large and small carriages. Not long after, many handsome men and women dressed in luxurious clothes walked out of the carriage. This was the first time Qin Yun had seen a woman from a bloodline aristocrat family. She looked very strong as well. Some of these young disciples were at the spirit realm. They were all people of the same generation as Zi Qingsheng and the others. A few men saw Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi from afar and quickly walked over. Qin Yun was also curious. The disciples of the bloodline aristocrat family were actually so interested in ordinary human women. Back then, they had even fought. He really couldn't tell what was so good about Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. However, it had to be said that these two beauties were indeed very popular with the disciples of the bloodline aristocrat family. Qin Yun took a closer look and realized that although the women from the bloodline aristocrat family were quite beautiful, they were still lacking compared to Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. Shui Tianzi smiled charmingly as she chatted with the young masters. Zi Qingsheng only responded with a cold face. However, those young masters were not disgusted. Instead, they said that she was still the same after so many years. Qin Yun never expected that Zi Qingsheng would be an icy beauty back then. She was completely unlike the sister-steamed Bun he was familiar with. Qingsheng, is this your cousin? I heard that he has a very powerful ability. He can see through the vats refined by Dao inscription masters. A man wearing luxurious blue clothes walked over with a smile and looked at Qin Yun. Zi Qingsheng was very protective of Qin Yun. When she saw the young masters approaching, she hurriedly came to Qin Yun's side and said, "He was just blindly guessing. He can't see through the vat at all." "Qingsheng, you really know how to joke. He was just blindly guessing. How could he have guessed correctly so many times?" Another male laughed. The mustache man from the divine inscription palace laughed loudly and said, "Heroes of the bloodline aristocrat family, you have come from afar. Aren't you going to have a good time? 2 days ago, these ladies gambled a few times and won quite a lot." In the eyes of the divine inscription palace, these ostentatious young masters were also big fish. "Let's play and try our luck." The blue-clothed man smiled. "I'll buy number 9, number 15, number 43, number 50, number 75, 2 million purple coins each." Following that, the other 5 bloodline warriors also bought 5 numbers. They all bought 2 million for each number. As long as they bought correctly, they would be able to win 20 million. Apart from the 10 million cost, they would still be able to make a profit. Other than a few warriors of the spirit realm, there were also a few young disciples of the martial Dao realm. There were both men and women. They also joined in. Everyone could not help but exclaim in admiration. The bloodline aristocrat family was extremely rich. In their eyes, purple coins were like water. They squandered them without a care in the world. Idiot, aren't you going to buy today? Suddenly, someone shouted at Qin Yun. Is it because the rules have been changed that you can't win for sure? That must be the case. This guy tricked us so badly yesterday. Although he can't win anymore, he has earned enough. Qin Yun had earned nearly 200 million purple coins. It was indeed a lot. Zi Qingsheng pulled Qin Yun to the side, far away from the disciples of the bloodline aristocrat family. Cousin, those guys aren't good people. Let's see if the water fairy can get anything out of them. Zi Qingsheng said. Why would their bloodline aristocrat family be so interested in the two of you? Qin Yun was very curious. There should be a lot of outstanding women in their bloodline aristocrat family, right? Zi Qingsheng snorted lightly. You don't know. These bloodline aristocrat families cultivate both righteous and demonic cultivation techniques. If they really get us, they will use us as cultivation cauldrons and constantly absorb our power. We have better aptitude among ordinary humans. As long as they can get their hands on us, not only will they be able to obtain good playthings, they will also be able to rapidly increase their cultivation. Qin Yun looked at Zi Qingsheng in surprise. Looks like they are not easy to deal with. Zi Qingsheng said, That's right. However, they are still a bit inexperienced. Back then, they were played around by me and the water fairy. Now, so many years have passed, they should be veterans and won't be so easy to deal with. 2 hours passed. The mustache man placed the bird into a water jar and activated the formation. Qin Yun hurriedly concentrated and used his extinction spirit eye to look inside the 100 water jars. When the formation was in operation, he could see the trajectory of the bird's teleportation through the extinction spirit eye. If only my mental force could penetrate the water jar, I would be able to control that bird. Qin Yun sighed in his heart. Then he suddenly thought of his penetration divine art. He thought for a moment and felt that his mental force might be able to penetrate those vats with strong defenses through the power of the penetration divine art. Qin Yun immediately gave a try. After trying it out, he was extremely excited. This was because his mental force could really penetrate the vats. Moreover, it was silent and did not affect the operation of the formation. Through the extinction spirit eye, he saw the large vat where the bird was. He immediately used his mind to lock onto it, and then used the imperial spirit technique to control the movement of the bird puppet. After a while, the teleportation array stopped and the bird landed. Qin Yun did not succeed in controlling the bird. The main reason was that he was not familiar with the teleportation trajectory. However, he was also very excited because he could control the bird's movement. Number 15. The mustache man opened all the lids and shouted when he saw the bird fly out of the 15th vat. My luck is pretty good. I got on the first round. The blue-clothed bloodline warrior laughed heartily and went to collect the 20 million purple coins. The other bloodline warriors also walked over to congratulate him. Shui Tianzi was unable to obtain any benefits from these bloodline warriors and walked towards Zi Qingsheng in disappointment. These fellows are no longer as inexperienced as they were back then. Zi Qingsheng chuckled and said, I knew they weren't that easy to trick, so I couldn't be bothered with them. Qin Yun said in a low voice, All of you have to be wary of these fellows. They will definitely hold a grudge against you. As long as they have the chance, they will definitely be ruthless towards you. The second round began, and the group of bloodline warriors continued to play. Moreover, it was a huge sum of money. They all bought 5 of them for 5 million purple coins each. Qin Yun walked over and said, I'll buy number 80, 10 million purple coins. Zi Qingsheng and the others never expected Qin Yun to suddenly participate. Furthermore, he was spending so much money. Hong Mengshu and the Hong Ing Martial King, who were watching from afar, also felt that it was strange. Mengshu, are you following? The Hong Ing Martial King asked. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi didn't buy anything from him, so I won't be following for now. Hong Mengshu said. Qin Yun bought number 80 again. Everyone found it strange, but they did not buy it with him. After the rules were changed, there were no loopholes at all. Even if they could see through it, it would be useless. I really can't tell that Qingqing's cousin is actually so heroic. A bloodline warrior laughed. Qin Yun ignored him. He took a jade token and came to the side of the vats. This made the bloodline warrior somewhat angry. That was because Qin Yun was only at the martial Dao realm. Yet, he was ignoring him. Zi Qingsheng had been following Qin Yun the entire time. She said, "My cousin is like this. He doesn't talk to strangers. Please forgive him. I won't lower myself to his level." The bloodline warrior sneered. After the second round of betting ended, the Great Formation was activated. Just like before, Qin Yun tried to control the birds in the water tank. Last time, he failed because he was unable to grasp the trajectory of the teleportation. This time, he was much more familiar with the teleportation trajectory. However, it was still rather difficult to accurately control the birds. Qin Yun did not plan on winning this round. He only wanted to familiarize himself with it and warm up. He would lose a few times before winning a big one. That way, no one would suspect him. A moment later, the formation stopped and the bird flew out of the 51st vat. This time, there were also people who had won. Furthermore, there were a few of them. However, they did not buy much. Each of them only bought 2 to 300,000, which was nothing to the Divine Inscription Palace. And in the second round, the Divine Inscription Palace had received more than 100 million purple coins. Following that, Qin Yun participated in the third and fourth rounds. He bought 10 million purple coins each, but none of them won. In total, he had only lost 30 million. As for those bloodline warriors, they had lost 50 to 60 million purple coins. Perhaps it was because the bloodline warriors had lost most of their money, so after the fifth round, they did not participate much. They also seemed to realize that this vat was a huge scam. In the fifth round, there were much fewer people betting. What was surprising was that Zi Qingqing's foolish cousin actually still wanted to place a bet. "I'll buy number 80 and 88, 50 million each," Qin Yun said. This caused the people in the plaza to cry out in alarm. This was a huge sum of money, 100 million at a time. Only a martial king could afford it. Even the disciples of the bloodline aristocrat clan were moved. When Hong Mengshu saw that the opportunity had come, she hurriedly walked over and shouted, "I'll also buy number 80 and 88, 50 million each. Miss, I'm not sure even in my dreams. I've lost a few times before, so I might lose this time as well," Qin Yun said. In fact, he was not completely confident. Otherwise, he would have asked Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi to buy as well. Chapter 441. Dragon Bloodline Family. The people from the Divine Inscription Palace were all somewhat puzzled because they were very sure that no one could know the result in advance. But this fool actually played it so big. What was inconceivable was that Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi also bet 100 million. When Qin Yun saw that they were buying as well, he felt a lot of pressure. If they did not succeed, then they would lose this round. Zi Qingsheng, Shui Tianzi, and the others had earned nearly 200 million yesterday. Even if they lost now, it wouldn't matter, so they boldly bought as well. Those bloodline warriors immediately felt displeased. This was because they, the disciple from the bloodline aristocrat clan, were not even as big as a few women and a fool. This was completely inferior to them. Of course, they wanted to continue gambling, but they didn't have much purple coins on hand. They only had a little, and they still had to stay in the inn. At first, they thought that they would be able to win a few rounds in a row, but they didn't expect to lose all of them. This was how it was when gambling. They always felt that they would make a comeback, so they continued to play. After Qin Yun and company placed their bets, they waited patiently. It would take another 2 hours before the results would be revealed. Many people were waiting as well. Although Qin Yun had bought a lot, no one followed him in buying. Just as the 2 hours were about to end, a beautiful woman wearing a white dress suddenly appeared. Her beautiful face carried a trace of coldness. When they saw this woman, Qin Yun and Hong Mengshu were somewhat surprised. This woman was Xiao Yuanmei. However, it was not the twin tails that they were familiar with. Instead, it was a beautiful and cold outfit. I also want to buy number 80 and 88, 50 million purple coins each, Xiao Yuemei's tone was filled with a coldness that rejected people 1,000 miles away. As soon as she arrived, she heard a lot of things. She took out her mirror and saw a person with 3 martial spirits. She was sure that Qin Yun was here. Therefore, she was very sure that Zi Qingqing's cousin was Qin Yun. Since it was Qin Yun, she boldly followed him. A woman of unknown origin was playing with 100 million purple coins. This caused the bloodline warriors to be stimulated once again. They never expected that the women in the martial desolate land would become richer and richer. I am Xiongzi Xuan, from the exploding bear bloodline aristocrat family. May I ask for your name? Mrs. So generous. You must be from a big family. The bloodline warrior in blue robes walked over and asked Xiao Yuemei with a smile on his face. I am Long Yuemei, from the martial desolate northern domain, the ancient dragon blood family. Xiao Yuemei's voice is cold. Her face is filled with arrogance. This caused many bloodline martial artists to be moved. If the Hongning martial king had not seen Xiao Yuemei before, he would have definitely been fooled. Qin Yun knows that Xiao Yuemei is swindling people again. Is this real? I've never heard of the dragon blood family. Xiongzi Xuan was shocked by Xiao Yuemei's words. Believe it or not, Xiao Yuemei coldly snorted. Her eyes are filled with disdain as she looked at Xiongzi Xuan. Xiongzi Xuan was a bloodline martial artist of the spirit martial realm, and he could be considered a relatively young one. However, he was now being looked down upon like this. This was something that had never happened before. Shui Tianzi said in a low voice, "The inheritance of the dragon's bloodline has never existed." Those bloodline martial artists were also discussing this matter. At this moment, a powerful aura surged over. It was a martial king, and a bloodline martial king at that. Everyone also saw a burly middle-aged man with a tiger's waist and a bear's back. He was wearing mighty battle armor as he slowly flew over and landed beside Xiongzi Xuan. "Father," Xiongzi Xuan hurriedly shouted, "have you heard of the dragon bloodline family?" This bloodline martial spirit was actually Xiongzi Xuan's father. From this, it could be seen that Xiongzi Xuan's position in the exploding bear bloodline family was extremely high. Dragon bloodline? The middle-aged man frowned. Xiongzi Xuan looked at Xiao Yuemei and said in a low voice, "This woman, she said she came from the dragon blood family." Xiao Yuemei sneered, "A bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. Don't you know that in the spirit desolate, there are several dragon blood family? The reason why there are no powerful ancient beast bloodline inheritances in the 3 desolate lands is because the spiritual energy in the 3 desolate lands is too weak. So powerful ancient beasts are extremely rare. And in the spirit desolate, dragons are very common. The dragon in the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range came from the spirit desolate, and our Long family was ordered to subdue this dragon." Qin Yun felt that he did not recognize Xiao Yuemei anymore. He had almost believed her, but when he thought about how good she was at deceiving people, he immediately felt that she was lying. "I wonder if Mrs. Elders are in the Northern Spirit City?" The middle-aged man from the Xiong family asked with a face full of shock. "My elders have already gone to the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range." Xiao Yuemei said, "I also heard from my elders that there's an immortal treasure in the immortal graveyard desolate domain that attracted the dragon from the spirit desolate." She paused for a moment before continuing, "There are many nether realm heavenly lions in the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. This is also to prevent dragons from robbing tombs." Qin Yun was secretly alarmed because he had just mastered the heavenly lion summoning technique and could summon the nether realm heavenly lion. Originally, he was very curious about what the nether realm heavenly lion looked like. Now that he heard Xiao Yuemei's words, he knew that it was a black lion. The black lion that had run out from the tomb that Jin Xuanzi and the others had opened was the nether realm heavenly lion. "Looks like we have to enter the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range as soon as possible." The Xiong family's martial king's face was filled with anxiety. He took out a sound transmission jade talisman and sent a sound transmission to the other martial kings. Xiongzi Xuan asked in a low voice, "Father, Does that mean there really is a dragon blood family? Why have I never heard of it? The Xiong family's martial king said, "There is indeed one in the spirit desolate. I just didn't expect that there would be a dragon blood family in the martial desolate. I really don't know when they passed down their inheritance to this place." Xiao Yuanmei laughed coldly. The divine inscription palace is also one of the overlords of the spirit desolate. Because they seized the initiative and came to the martial desolate early to develop, they have a huge power in the martial desolate. Our dragon clan is only interested in the Cloud Dragon Mountain range. So we sent people to the martial desolate 10,000 years ago. Qin Yun really wanted to ask Xiao Yuanmei how she knew so many things. A martial king was not so easily deceived. Just now, the Xiong family's martial king had seriously probed Xiao Yuanmei's aura and sensed the aura of the dragon martial spirit. That was why he believed her. Xiao Yuanmei's mirror martial spirit could replicate a large number of martial spirits. One of them was her sister Xiao Yuelan's purple gold dragon martial spirit. Now that she was using this dragon martial spirit, she could indeed deceive many people. "Miss, I wonder what level your dragon martial spirit is. It looks very strong." The Xiong family's martial king asked curiously. His question caused the thousands of people present to be incomparably shocked. The disciples of the bloodline aristocrat clan all looked at Xiao Yuanmei in unison. The dragon martial spirit was a beast martial spirit bestowed by the heavens. It was one of the most powerful martial spirits. "No comment," Xiao Yuanmei said coldly. A pure dragon martial spirit was extremely rare, and there were only dual attribute dragon martial spirits. For example, Lu Wudi's earth dragon martial spirit was a type of dragon similar to a pangolin. The mustache man said, "Prepare to reveal the results. Miss Long, you just bet 100 million. If you lose, don't hate our divine inscription palace." "A mere 100 million purple coins. What is it? If I lose, I lose. I can afford to lose." Xiao Yuanmei coldly looked at the middle-aged man and said, "I'm actually afraid that your divine inscription palace can't afford to lose. How is that possible? Since you are from the Dragonblood family, you must know the background of our divine inscription palace." The middle-aged man chuckled and then activated the formation. Qin Yun immediately paid close attention to the array. At that moment, many people were the same as him. They were all nervously looking at the vats. Just like before, Qin Yun used the penetrating divine art to allow his mental power to penetrate the vat. He controlled the bird to follow the teleportation trajectory and stop in the 88th vat. The array also stopped. Qin Yun heaved a long sigh of relief. He was secretly excited. He had succeeded. The mustache man stroked his beard and shouted, "Reveal the results." The lid of the vat was opened, and the bird flew out of the 88th vat. Hwah! The uproar from the audience was like a fierce explosion that enveloped the entire plaza. "Ha ha ha! Yes, I've won again." Hong Mengshu could not suppress her joy and laughed out loud. This fool, he actually guessed correctly. How did he know the result? Could it be that he really has the ability to predict the future? Maybe he really did rely on luck. He lost a few rounds in a row before. The disciples of the Bloodline Aristocrat clan were all extremely jealous. That was because Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi had earned 400 million purple coins this time. Even the Hong Ying Martial King and the Xiong family's Martial King were filled with surprise. They were all experienced and knowledgeable, but they could not understand how Zi Qingsheng's cousin knew the result. The expression of the mustache man from the Divine Inscription Palace turned extremely unsightly. Previously, it could be said that he could see through the vat and know which vat the bird was in before placing his bet. But now, he had placed his bet first and began to activate the teleportation formation in the vat. It was impossible for him to know in advance. "I've finally guessed correctly." Qin Yin smiled as well. Gambling is like this. After losing a few rounds, your luck will definitely change. Everyone recalled that when Hong Mengshu placed her bet, Qin Yin had tried to dissuade her. It was obvious that he did not have much confidence, so they were certain that he had guessed blindly. The Divine Inscription Palace could indeed afford to lose. Although they were unwilling, they still gave too. 5 billion purple coins to Qin Yun, Zi Qingsheng, and the other two girls. There's still the last round today. Shui Tianzi was grinning from ear to ear as her eyes narrowed. She and Zi Qingsheng were overjoyed. In the past few days, they had earned hundreds of millions of purple coins. If they were to do another round, they would earn another 500 million. That would be 1 billion. Divine Inscription Palace, do you not dare to play anymore? Although Xiao Yuemei's face was ice cold, she was extremely happy in her heart. She knew that following Qin Yun to buy would definitely not be wrong. She was also very curious as to how Qin Yun had guessed correctly. The mustache man wiped his sweat and said, "How is that possible? The 6th round begins now." Their Divine Inscription Palace could lose purple coins, but they felt that they could not lose face and momentum. Otherwise, they would become a laughing stock. Under the notice of the Xiong family's martial king, many martial kings arrived one after another. Even Mu Feng came. The moment Mu Feng arrived, he heard that there was a woman from the Dragonblood family here. When he saw that it was Xiao Yuemei, he immediately understood what was going on. However, he did not expose her. Although Xiao Yuemei did not disguise herself, the ice-cold attitude she displayed and the change in her hairstyle made it difficult to recognize her. Chapter 442. Covert Cooperation. There were dozens of martial kings at the scene. They were also eager to make a move and planned to bet with Zi Qingqing's cousin. The pressure on the Divine Inscription Palace was immense. If every martial king won several hundred million, then their Divine Inscription Palace would lose 20 to 30 billion. Has the 6th round started yet? Someone shouted. These martial kings had a lot of purple crystal coins on hand. If they could use 100 million to bet a few hundred million and still win, they would be very happy. After all, earning purple coins from the Divine Inscription Palace was a very pleasant thing. The mustache man looked at Mu Feng and smiled as he hurriedly walked over. Mu Feng seemed to have a rather special position in the Divine Inscription Palace. Many large-scale events were hosted by him. Elder Mu, what about the 6th round? The mustache man looked at Qin Yun, his heart filled with hatred. There were more than 100 Xian martial realm and spirit martial realm cultivators here. They were all very rich. The Hong Ying martial king said with a smile, "Don't suddenly stop playing in the Inscription Palace. Everyone has lost quite a bit to you before." A few of the martial kings also started to shout. Many martial kings also disliked the Inscription Palace. Now that they had the opportunity to blackmail them, they naturally could not let it go. Mu Feng said indifferently, "Of course our Inscription Palace can afford to play. Let's continue with the 6th round." The fact that the Divine Inscription Palace wanted to continue playing caused the entire plaza to boil with excitement. Mu Feng looked at Qin Yun and said with a laugh, "Since this is a gamble, there will always be winners and losers." This little friend seemed to have the ability to predict the future, but I don't believe it. It must have been a coincidence that he won just now. Qin Yun smiled, walked over and said, "I'll buy 52, 58, 50 million each." If he guessed correctly this time, he would earn another few hundred million. Since the Divine Inscription Palace was willing to accompany him to the end, Qin Yun did not stand on ceremony. As expected of a hero, Mu Feng smiled calmly. Zi Qingsheng, Xiao Yuemei, Hong Mengshu, and Shui Tianzi also followed closely behind Qin Yun and bought 52 and 58, 100 million each. The others did not follow Qin Yun to buy. They were just watching. If Qin Yun won again, he would definitely have the ability to predict the future. It would not be too late to play with him tomorrow. 2 hours passed. Only Qin Yun, Xiao Yuemei, and a few other women placed their bets. One had to know that Qin Yun had scammed people before. So many people were very cautious. The mustache man had activated the array. After a while, it stopped, and the bird flew out from the 52nd vat. All the martial kings exclaimed in admiration, and the square was once again shrouded in cries of surprise. This fool guessed it right. Another 500 million. Those women have also earned quite a lot. These women trust that fool a lot. They fished a lot yesterday. They didn't invest much in the first place. Even if they lose, they will only return it to the Divine Inscription Palace. I have to say, these women's sixth sense is really powerful. Haha, the Divine Inscription Palace has suffered a huge loss. This fool shouldn't be able to live for long. He possesses the ability to foresee the future and reveal the secrets of the heavens. This will damage his lifespan. I wonder what his martial spirit is. Could it be the foresight martial spirit? There were many voices in the square. Many people believed that Qin Yun had grasped the ability to foresee the future. Xiao Yueme looked at the mustache man and said with a smile, "Does your Divine Inscription Palace still dare to continue tomorrow?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" However, the people who are going to the immortal graveyard desolate domain are all here, so we should head there as soon as possible. Your Dragonblood family has already gone to the immortal graveyard desolate domain. If we don't hurry up, we might not even be able to get anything, Mu Feng said with a smile. Although the Divine Inscription Palace had lost another 2 billion, he was still very calm. A bloodline martial king hurriedly said, "It's fine. It won't be too late for us to finish the round tomorrow." The dozens of martial kings present also agreed. It was clear that they wanted to scam the Divine Inscription Palace before going. Everyone had seen with their own eyes that Zi Qingqing's foolish cousin had accurately predicted the results twice in a row. He must have grasped a special foresight ability. If the Divine Inscription Palace continued to play, that foolish cousin would definitely continue to play and win. Mu Feng laughed heartily and said, "I actually want to go to the immortal graveyard desolate domain as soon as possible. How about this? Our Divine Inscription Palace will immediately start the next round. This way, after everyone finishes playing, we can immediately set off." Everyone was somewhat surprised and could not help but admire the foundation of the Divine Inscription Palace. "In order to let everyone have fun, I will raise the limit to 100 million purple coins. When you buy a single number, you can bet up to 100 million. Mu Feng's words caused everyone in the plaza to cry out in alarm. Not only did the Divine Inscription Palace make an exception for the 7th round, they had also raised the upper limit of the bet. This was simply crazy. Mu Feng looked at Qin Yun and said, "Brother, I really don't believe that you can foresee the future. I've never heard of such a thing, so I'll take a gamble. Let's bet that you won't be able to guess correctly next time." Qin Yun was very astonished because Mu Feng looked too calm and collected. No one placed a bet. They were all waiting for Qin Yun. At this moment, the person in charge of placing the bet had become Mu Feng. He used his purple crystal card to receive the purple coins. Qin Yun walked over and said, "I'll buy 70 and 75, 100 million each." He felt that even if he lost this time, he would only lose 200 million. In any case, he had earned enough. Zi Qingqing and the other 3 girls also had faces full of joy as they followed suit to place their bets. Each of them bought 200 million. The Hongying martial king finally made his move. He followed Qin Yun and bought. If he won, he would be able to earn 800 million. The other martial kings and tycoons also followed suit. Everyone placed their bets on 70 and 75. In less than an hour, the total bet was more than 10 billion purple crystal coins. If they really opened 70 and 75, then the Divine Inscription Palace would have to pay more than 100 billion purple coins. This was definitely a huge loss. The mustache man immediately broke out in a cold sweat. When everyone saw Qin Yun's confident appearance, they felt that he would definitely win. At that time, everyone would have a rich income. To the Divine Inscription Palace, they could afford to lose more than 100 billion. This was because they were the ones in charge of issuing the purple crystal cards. They could increase the amount of purple coins in the purple crystal cards at will. Of course, if it was exchanged for ready-made purple coins, there would be a limit that could not be exceeded every day. If it was exceeded, or if they wanted to exchange for a large amount of purple coins, they would have to go to the Inscription Royal City. There was also a time limit. Qin Yun was also seriously observing the vats. At that moment, he suddenly heard Mu Feng's voice appear in his mind. Mu Feng had sent him a sound transmission. "I know you are Qin Yun." Mu Feng sent a sound transmission to Qin Yun. I also know that you hold a grudge against the Divine Inscription Palace. This matter is not something that I can control. Back then, I was also against the Divine Inscription Palace doing that. Qin Yun replied, General Director, I have never blamed you. We are still friends. Mu Feng was very happy and continued to send a sound transmission. Since we are friends, how about we make a good profit? You deliberately lost. This way, I can earn more than 10 billion. Then, I will split the purple coins with you equally. That way, you will have billions of income. When Qin Yun heard this, his heart pounded. However, he did not trust Mu Feng very much. That was because he had previously been given up on by the Divine Inscription Palace, and his qualifications as an inscription master had been revoked. Although we are friends, the benefits involved are too great. I don't trust you, Qin Yun replied. Mu Feng immediately sent a sound transmission. Don't look at me as a middle-aged fatty, but I have lived for a long time, and I am not younger than Zhuchuan. Zhuchuan is my disciple. He has reported everything that happened to you in the borderlands to me. I also know that Xiao Yuelon possesses the immortal graveyard diagram. If you want to know the great use of that immortal graveyard diagram, I could tell you in detail in the future. That's right, the Xiao family in the borderlands is a very mysterious family. I know a little about the Xiao family situation. Qin Yun was alarmed. He had previously investigated the Tian Xiao imperial tomb with Xiao Xianqin. It was indeed very mysterious. This was also a mystery that had been plaguing him. Mu Feng sent another sound transmission. If I wasn't trustworthy, I would have told everyone about your matter a long time ago. But I didn't say anything, and I even tried my best to keep it a secret for you. I'm also in charge of managing the Divine Inscription Palace in the Borderlands. Any news that comes from there will come to me first. I have also sent a few trustworthy people over. They will join forces with the Moon Profound Valley to firmly control the Borderlands. Qin Yun thought about it seriously and felt that Mu Feng was trustworthy. He replied with a sound transmission. I'll take 80% and you take 20%. How about it? Mu Feng immediately replied. I'll take 40% and you take 60%. I'll take 70% and you take 30%. Each of us will take a step back. Qin Yun said with a smile. If your Divine Inscription Palace loses, you will lose more than 100 billion purple coins. All right. Mu Feng also agreed and said, I'll talk to you about the ancient gardens in detail in the future. You being abandoned by the Divine Inscription Palace has something to do with this matter. The two of them were transmitting their voices from afar, so no one could see through them. Qin Yun did not have a good impression of those martial kings. Now that he could scam them, it was also very satisfying. Many of these martial kings were from bloodline aristocrat families and had good relations with Totem Pavilion. Qin Yun had been paying attention to this place the entire time. He did not see the elders of Huo Wu King, the beast-taming king, and Mao Mimi. It seemed that only the three of them were missing. This made him feel very strange. He hurriedly sent a sound transmission to Mu Feng. General Director, did Little Lu, Wu Shuang, and Mimi not come? They entered the ancient garden and came out. They're out. I'll tell you the details later. Mu Feng replied with a smile. Right now, there's still some things that I'm not sure about. Qin Yun felt that this matter was not simple. He did not pursue the matter any further and waited for the formation to begin. The mustache man activated the formation. Qin Yun also used the Extinction Spirit Eye. He wanted to ensure that the bird puppet would not appear in the 70th and 75th vats. When the formation was activated, the entire place was silent. It was as if one could hear the whooshing sound of it being activated. The formation stopped. The moment the lid was opened, everyone held their breath and watched. A bird flew out from the 5th vat. Everyone was stunned. Chapter 443. The Xiao family's secret after the silence. All sorts of curses erupted in the square, especially those who had bet all their purple coins. They kept cursing at Qin Yun. Among them, there were many young disciples, as well as the spirit and Xian martial realms of the various sections. They had all bet tens of millions of purple coins, and now they had lost all of it. Shui Tianzi was only a little disappointed, but her face was still full of smiles. Occasionally, I will miss once or twice. It's fine, I've earned enough anyway. Xiao Yuanmei did not say anything. She glanced at Mu Feng and suspected that Qin Yun and Mu Feng must have discussed it in secret. Zi Qingsheng and Hong Mengshu did not say anything either. They had won so much with Qin Yun, so there was nothing to complain about. As for the others, they were all complaining. Even a martial king would feel uncomfortable after being cheated of 200 million. Of course, the Hong Ying martial king smiled and did not say anything. In any case, his daughter had won quite a bit. This bastard fool. I really want to kill him. 2 in a row, and then he missed again. Is he playing with us? He must have tricked us on purpose. Mother asterisk her. He's giving the Divine Inscription Palace some blood. He'll slowly earn it from the Divine Inscription Palace in the future. What a bastard. The young disciples of the various powers had basically emptied their purple coins on their crystal cards. It was also these people who cursed Qin Yun the loudest and most intense. Qin Yun did not think much of it. After all, his current identity was only that of a fool's cousin. Most importantly, he had earned a lot of purple coins from it. It was enough for him to use for a long time. How about we set off tonight? A martial king from a bloodline aristocrat clan said. They knew that the Dragonblood family had gone to the immortal graveyard desolate domain. They could not fall behind. Tonight, gather outside the north gate. Many martial kings had agreed to set off tonight. Although they were in a bad mood, they still had to go to the immortal graveyard desolate domain. Let's go back. Zi Qingsheng pulled Qin Yun along. Shui Tianzi also protected Qin Yun by her side, worried that someone would attack him. Brother, take care. You are a great benefactor of our Divine Inscription Palace. I want to treat you to a drink to thank you. Mu Feng hurriedly shouted when he saw that Qin Yun was about to leave. Shui Tianzi hurriedly said, Ah Shui, you must not go. Qin Yun gave a simple and honest smile. Since someone is treating me to a meal, why wouldn't I go? As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Feng and said, I want to eat the best. Brother is really straightforward. Let's go then. Mu Feng patted Qin Yun on the shoulder and said with a smile, Brother, have you mastered some kind of X-ray vision ability? Can you see through women's clothes? Hearing Mu Feng's words, Zi Qingsheng, Shui Tianzi, and the others immediately felt strange. Ladies, you can go back first. I will definitely send this little brother back safely. After Mu Feng finished speaking, he looked at Xiao Yuanmei. Miss Long Yuanmei, right? Since you are from the Dragonblood clan, why don't you come along as well? I want to ask you a few questions about the Dragonblood clan. Would you mind giving me some face? All right, Xiao Yuanmei coldly said and nodded. Soon after, Mu Feng led Qin Yun and Xiao Yuanmei away. Hong Mengshu had also guessed that Qin Yun must have made a private agreement with Mu Feng. That was why he had deliberately lost. She was also secretly happy because Qin Yun must have earned a lot through their cooperation. She was also very unhappy with those people from the bloodline aristocrat families and some other powers. They were truly arrogant. If they were to earn something, she would feel a little uncomfortable in her heart. Mu Feng brought Qin Yun and Xiao Yuanmei to a secret living room in the Divine Inscription Palace. You two, stop pretending. Sit down, Mu Feng said with a smile. After Xiao Yuanmei sat down, she crossed her legs and said with a charming smile, You guys really have dirty deals that can't be seen. It's nothing. We are just maximizing the benefits. Mu Feng laughed. Qin Yun pinched Xiao Yuanmei's face. On the other hand, you are very good at pretending to be a disciple of the Dragonblood family. I was almost fooled by you, Mu Feng said. Qin Yun, she is not lying. The Xiao family in the border region has a hidden dragon bloodline inheritance. The dragon bloodline in little girl Yuanmei's body should have awakened as well. Qin Yun looked at Xiao Yuanmei in a daze, speechless. Xiao Yuanmei stuck out her tongue. Big fatty, you really know a lot? You can't be thinking of eating me, right? Mu Feng immediately laughed out loud. If I really wanted to eat you, you would definitely not even have bones left. Qin Yun recalled Xiao Xianqin's suspicions towards the Xiao family. Now, it was proven that her suspicions were correct. Their Shao family did indeed have a special bloodline inheritance. Big fatty, how many purple coins did you give my brother? Xiao Yuanmei asked. 7 billion. Mu Feng took out a purple crystal card and walked toward Qin. He said with a smile, "Our cooperation is very pleasant." Qin said with a smile, "To be honest, I don't want to bring those guys to win at all." There was a total of 8 billion on Qin's purple crystal card. Mu Feng exclaimed, "You are truly amazing. You actually grasped the power of foresight." Qin only smiled and did not say anything else. How he won, this matter could not be explained in detail, lest the divine inscription palace be on guard against him. Xiao Yuanmei snorted lightly. "Big fatty, why did your divine inscription palace give up on protecting my brother?" Even his qualifications as an inscription master were revoked. "It's too unkind." Mu Feng sighed and said, "The bloodline aristocrat family provided the upper echelons of the divine inscription palace with pure inherited blood. As for Totem Pavilion, they gave some totem runes. That's why the divine inscription palace decided to no longer protect Qin Yun. In addition, Qin Yun did not enter that ancient garden. Instead, he went to another ancient garden, causing one person to be missing. This also caused the upper echelons of the divine inscription palace to be criticized." Qin Yun asked, "General Director, what's going on in that ancient garden?" Mu Feng said with a smile, "I can only tell you that only people with 3 life marks or less are allowed to enter that ancient garden. There are very precious things hidden inside. Once you enter, someone will receive you and arrange for you to search for treasures inside." Qin Yun was certain that the treasure was the sun's soul. Mu Feng asked, "Qin Yun, are you going to enter the immortal graveyard desolate domain?" Qin Yun nodded and said yes. "I want to confirm what the relationship between the immortal graveyard desolate domain and the immortal graveyard diagram is. It has a lot to do with it. I'm not sure about the specifics. I'll have to go in to find out." Mu Feng said with a smile, "The immortal graveyard diagram on Xiao Yulan's body is the most important thing. It is said that as long as one can decipher the immortal graveyard diagram, they can easily enter the most powerful immortal tomb." "Big fatty, don't have any ideas about my sister," Xiao Yuanmei immediately said vigilantly. "Don't worry, I'm not as inflexible as those old antiques of the divine inscription palace." Mu Feng said with a smile, "I admire you youngsters very much." Xiao Yuanmei said, "I had originally planned to enter the immortal graveyard desolate domain, but I felt that there was definitely nothing good inside, so I was too lazy to go." "You lied to those guys and said that there was some Dragonblood family inside," Qin Yun said with a smile. "Who asked them to be stupid?" Xiao Yuanmei said with a chuckle. "These idiots might even die inside." "Brother, don't go either. It's very dangerous inside." Qin Yun shook his head. "No, I want to go in and take a look." "Then be careful." Xiao Yuanmei stood up and walked towards the door. She said, "I'm leaving now. I'm going to walk around." "Yuanmei, do you want purple coins?" Qin Yun asked. "No need. I still have a few 100 million. It's enough." Xiao Yuanmei smiled, opened the door, and left. Qin Yun did not need to worry about the elusive Xiao Yuanmei. She had always been doing well and had also awakened a mysterious and powerful dragon bloodline. "Qin Yun, do you have the bloodline of a heavenly lion?" Mu Feng asked with a smile. Qin Yun nodded. Zhuo Chuan knew that he had the bloodline of a heavenly lion. "It's best if you don't expose yourself, otherwise. The bloodline aristocrat clan of the 3 desolate lands will definitely join hands with Totem Pavilion to capture you. At that time, maybe even the divine inscription palace will make a move. Your 9 extinction gates, great formation, might not be able to withstand it either." Mu Feng's expression suddenly turned extremely serious. Qin Yun nodded. "I understand. Thank you for the reminder, General Director." "It's nothing." Mu Feng shook his head. He thought very highly of Qin Yun. Others might not know, but he knew very well that Hong Mengshu's mystic moon saber had been repaired. Although he did not ask, he was certain that the mystic moon saber had been repaired by Qin Yun. This was a very heaven-defying ability. "Qin Yun, there was a group of people who participated in the construction of many immortal tombs. The descendants of this group of people reproduced in the border areas. Therefore, there are many good seedlings in the border areas. His talent is definitely not bad. It might just be because of the sparse resources that his breakthrough is slow. Mu Feng's words also surprised Qin Yun. It seems like there are many secrets hidden in the border areas. He thought of the Tian Shao Imperial Tomb. That was an extremely mysterious existence. Mu Feng said, "All right, I'll send you back to the inn now." Although the Moon Profound Valley is made up of women, it is also very mysterious. Although they have connections with several king-level sects, they have not been controlled by them. Instead, they have obtained quite a bit of benefits from the king-level sects. Qin Yun nodded and left the Divine Inscription Palace with Mu Feng. He sat in a carriage and headed for the luxurious inn. After returning, Qin Yun rested in his room. Using the penetration divine art and the extinction spirit, I consumed a lot of energy. He had to leave tonight, so he had to rest well. At night, Qin Yun, Zi Qingsheng, and Shui Tianzi sat in a large purplish gold carriage. This was Zi Qingsheng's. Qin Yun had sat in it before. Grandma Du and a few elders were in another carriage. The vast majority of people were sitting in large carriages with extremely strong defenses as they headed for the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. As for some people, they were flying in the air. These people were mainly there to ensure that the main force would not be ambushed. Little Dessert looked at Qin Yun, her charming face filled with curiosity. She asked, "Shui, do you have the power to foresee the future?" Qin Yun said with a smile, "No, I'm just blindly guessing." Little Dessert pouted and whispered, "Liar, I don't believe you." Qin Yun only smiled and did not say a word. At that moment, the earth suddenly trembled and a dragon's roar came from outside. Chapter 444. Summoned Celestial Lion Qin Yun and company had just entered the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range when they encountered this dragon. Ever since I broke through, I've been restraining my aura quite well. This dragon shouldn't be able to sense my heavenly lion blood, right? He was very puzzled. Shui Tianzi cursed in a low voice. It's all because of those bloodline aristocrat families. The aura of their bloodline has attracted the dragon. Zi Qingchang said, "I'll go out and take a look. You guys wait in the car." Qin Yun now knew that the dragon was not targeting him, but the warriors from the Bloodline Aristocrat clan. The fellows from the Bloodline Aristocrat clan didn't restrain their auras. In the end, they lured the dragon here. Wasn't it for the sake of everyone joining hands to kill the dragon? Shui Tianzi was very unhappy. Initially, she thought that she would be able to enter the immortal graveyard desolate domain comfortably. But now, she had encountered a dragon. For safety reasons, she asked Little Fruit and Little Dessert to go to Old Madame Du's carriage. Old Madame Du's side were all warriors of the Xian realm. If something unexpected happened, they would be able to handle it. The moving carriages all stopped. Many people heard the dragon's roar and ran out of the carriages to watch. The dragon's roar came from far away. Even if one flew high up in the sky, they wouldn't be able to see it. Keep going, don't be afraid. We have so many martial kings, we can even defeat 2 dragons. A bloodline martial king shouted. Qin Yun felt that even if there were many martial kings, they would not be able to subdue the dragon. Zi Qingsheng also returned to the carriage and continued to drive it forward. Just like that, a large number of luxurious carriages majestically shuttled through the forest of the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. Qin Yun is in a corner. He closed his eyes and used his powerful mental power to sense the situation outside. He was also someone who had narrowly escaped death in the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range, so he was quite experienced with the situation there. Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingsheng were also on guard with solemn expressions. This was because there were many dangers hidden within the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. If one was not careful, it was extremely likely that they would die. Late at night, the darkness disappeared, and the morning sun gradually shrouded the earth. Even though the sun was shining down, the mysterious Cloud Dragon Mountain Range was still terrifying. Qin Yun felt that it would be safer at night, because he could hide in the darkness at night. After a night of traveling, everyone had entered the depths of the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. However, there was still some distance between them and the location of the Immortal Tomb. After another day, dozens of carriages suddenly stopped because the earth was slightly shaking. Then, a dragon roar was heard. This time, the dragon's roar was clearer, which meant that the dragon was nearby. I wonder if they can take down that dragon. She also knew that the dragon was very strong. The quaking of the earth was getting more and more intense. Qin Yun, who had his eyes closed, suddenly sensed a very familiar aura. After he opened his eyes, he said in a deep voice, "The Nether Realm Heavenly Lion is nearby. The dragon is here." Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from outside. The clear roar of a dragon suddenly exploded in his ears. The dragon was right above. Rumble. A powerful aura swept over, and many of the carriages were sent flying. Rumbling sounds could be heard from outside as well. Many martial kings flew out to fight with the dragon. Originally, there were several tall mountains nearby, but they were all flattened by the power released by the dragon in that instant. Qin Yun and company came out of the carriage and saw a mighty and gigantic dragon in the distance. The dozens of martial kings around the dragon appeared extremely insignificant. However, the power of those martial kings was not weak. It caused the earth to tremble continuously. Waves of air surged out like a violent storm, striking the surrounding forest. Many large trees were uprooted and sent flying in all directions. "Cousin, we have to be careful," Qin Yun said with a deep voice. "There's a Nether Realm Heavenly Lion nearby." There were also many Xian Martial Realm and Spirit Martial Realm warriors here. They all came out of the carriages and protected the juniors as they watched the battle in the sky. At that moment, Qin Yun's expression suddenly changed drastically. He shouted in a low voice, "Cousin, run with me." After he finished speaking, he ran in a certain direction. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi did not know what was going on and hurriedly followed him. Roar. A lion's roar could be heard as black gas enveloped the forest. The Nether Realm Heavenly Lion had appeared. Although the size of this Nether Realm Heavenly Lion was not very large, it could fight to a draw with a dragon. Many Xian Realm martial artists could tell the strength of the Nether Realm Heavenly Lion and hurriedly fled with their juniors. "Grandma Du and the others should be fine, right?" Qin Yin said in a low voice. He was the first to leave with Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. "Don't worry." At this moment, Zi Qingsheng's expression was also very solemn. Shui Tianzi snorted and said, "It's all the fault of those bastards from the bloodline aristocrat clan. They don't know how to keep a low profile and attract a dragon and a Nether Realm Heavenly Lion." The trip to the immortal graveyard desolate domain was not as smooth as everyone had imagined. In less than 2 days, everyone had been separated. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi both had sound transmission jade talismans to contact Grandma Du. Even if they were separated, they could still communicate with each other. Qin Yun sensed the aura of the Nether Realm Heavenly Lion and felt relieved that it did not follow them. Just as he was feeling relieved, he suddenly sensed several auras of the spirit realm. "It's the bastards from the bloodline aristocrat clan," Shui Tianzi said coldly. "Why are they chasing us?" Zi Qingsheng was also somewhat angry. "It's Xiong Zishuan and the others." Qin Yun and company ran through a dense forest at an extremely fast speed. As for the few bloodline warriors behind them, they were even faster. Those bloodline warriors were all young warriors of the spirit realm. Back then, they had all pursued Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingsheng. Now that they had taken advantage of the chaos to chase after them, they definitely had ill intentions. "They're coming. I'll hide first." As Qin Yun spoke, he jumped onto the crown of a large tree and used the transparent pearl to make himself transparent. It was also at this moment that the few bloodline warriors flew over and surrounded Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. When Qin Yun saw this, he carefully took out the Xian Royal Cannon. The Xian Royal Cannon he had refined had a storage space inside, which stored many cannonballs. Those cannonballs had also been specially refined by him. It was made from a mixture of magical beast cores and a large amount of beast oil. He had condensed over 1,000 kilograms of beast oil into a fist-sized piece of black oil and then refined it into a spirit beast core. It could produce a very strong explosive power. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi were both dressed in tight clothes that were convenient for battle. As for the bloodline warriors of the spirit realm, they were all dressed in luxurious clothes. Qingsheng, where's that cousin of yours? This guy made us lose miserably. Xiong Zixuan asked as he faced the cold smile. He's with Grandma Du, Zi Qingsheng said. Xiong Zixuan laughed loudly. I saw him with you just now. I never thought that this fool's speed would be about the same as yours. Although Shui Tianzi was usually so charming and flirtatious when she was about to fight, her face was also filled with power. With a cold face, she said angrily, Don't stop us. Get out of the way. You two bitches, you played us in circles back then. Now that we have a rare chance to make you pay, how can we let you go so easily? A large man laughed sinisterly with a wretched expression. Zi Qingsheng sneered. Back then, didn't you want us to be your cultivation cauldron? Don't think that we don't know what you're thinking. Not only back then, but even now, you are still the best cauldron in my heart. I have to say, the women of our bloodline aristocrat clan are too domineering. You ordinary humans are the best. You can play however you want. A muscular man covered in black Qi laughed loudly. There were 4 bloodline warriors. Even if there were only 2, it was not something that Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi could deal with. You two sluts, I will definitely let you experience my power, ha. Xiong Zixuan tore off his clothes, revealing his muscles. At the same time that Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi were furious, they were also very anxious. Qinyan closed his eyes. Through the black thunder flame, heavenly lion martial spirit, he released the power of the great Tao. Suddenly, the surroundings overflowed with black gas. The ground trembled slightly as a black vortex suddenly appeared in the sky. A lion's roar could be heard as a black lion that was more than 10 meters long descended from the sky. The sudden appearance of a nether realm heavenly lion had an extremely terrifying aura. This scared the bloodline warriors who had evil intentions to the point that they all began to flee. Qin Yun descended from the tree and retracted his transparent power. He pulled Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi and jumped onto the back of the nether realm heavenly lion. The nether realm heavenly lion roared and began to run in a certain direction. The 2 beauties had been frightened by the nether realm heavenly lion, but in the blink of an eye, they were sitting on the back of the heavenly lion with Qin Yun. Cousin, what's going on with this nether realm heavenly lion? Zi Qingsheng found it hard to believe. She touched the heavenly lion, and it was a real existence. She knew that Qin Yun had the heavenly lion totem, so she could make the connection. As for Shui Tianzi, she did not know Qin Yun's identity. She only believed that the nether realm heavenly lion had been subdued by Qin Yun. Don't ask too much. Qin Yun smiled. This heavenly lion isn't very strong, but it's enough to scare those guys. Shui Tianzi had just been surrounded by a few bloodline warriors and was secretly in despair. Now that she had been saved by Qin Yun, she was much happier. She even hugged Qin Yun dishonestly and touched his body with her hands. Zi Qingsheng gritted her teeth and snorted. Evil water spirit, don't touch my cousin. Shui Tianzi sat on Qin Yun's back. She hugged Qin Yun from behind, and her fragrant body was pressed tightly against Qin Yun's back. Her jade-like hands were caressing Qin Yun's body. Qin Yun did not know what was so good about him. However, that pair of warm jade-like hands pressed against his body made him feel quite comfortable. I like him, so I touched him. What's wrong? Shui Tianzi said with a charming smile. Qin Yun suddenly said in a deep voice, Those fellows have caught up. They realized that this heavenly lion isn't very strong, so they chased after it. With that, he allowed the heavenly lion to return to the nether realm. Then, he quickly pulled the 2 girls and used the penetration divine art to enter a large mountain in front of them. There was a karst cave inside. When Qin Yun came to the karst cave, He quickly retracted the power of the penetration divine art. His face was somewhat pale. Bringing two people to use the divine art consumed a lot of energy. Chapter 445. Who will win? When Zi Qingcheng saw how exhausted Qin Yun was, she placed her hand on his back and channeled energy into him. Shui Tianzi also followed Zi Qingcheng to help Qin Yun replenish his internal energy. With their help, Qin Yun recovered very quickly. In just a little more than 2 hours, he became spirited again. Qin Yun said, "It's getting dark. I wonder if those guys are still outside or not. They have too many people. We can't beat them. I'd better meet up with Grandma Du first." Shui Tianzi said, "I just sent a message to Grandma Du, but she hasn't responded to me. I don't know what's going on with them either." Zi Qingsheng was also somewhat worried. She said that Heavenly Lion is also very strong. Only a martial king should be able to deal with it. Your Moon Profound Valley has a few black tortoise elders here. It shouldn't be a problem. Qin Yun said, "Don't worry too much." Shui Tianzi lightly snorted and said, "That group of martial kings is really something. Why didn't they go to the immortal graveyard desolate domain? Why did they run off to fight a dragon? They scattered the entire team." Zi Qingsheng said coldly, "They all want the things on the dragon's body. Maybe they don't want so many people to go to the immortal graveyard desolate domain together. If some people get separated, it's a good thing for them. So what are we going to do next? Are we going out?" asked Qin Yun. "Let's go out and take a look first." Shui Tianzi nodded. "But be careful, those guys might still be outside." Qin Yun did not use mysterious penetration divine ability because it consumes too much energy. Instead, he used nether sun flame to carefully burn a cave. After they came out, they sensed several auras here. "They're still here," Shui Tianzi said in a deep voice. She had also suddenly received a message from Old Lady Du. Grandma Du and the others aren't doing well either. There are actually quite a few powerful heavenly lions over there, and there are also many ghost beasts. After Shui Tianzi read the contents, she said worriedly, "I hope Little Fruit and Little Dessert are fine." Qin Yun was very good at dealing with ghost beasts because he had the Ghost Suppression Talisman and Ghost Suppression Talisman Array. "Let's go. This can also help them repel the ghost beasts." Zi Qingqing nodded. Shui Tianzi asked Old Madame Du and the others where they were, but did not receive an immediate response. This made them even more worried. "We must be careful. Those guys are circling around nearby," Qin Yun said in low voice. Shui Tianzi finally received another message from Old Madame Du. "Little Fruit and Little Dessert have been escorted away by Grandma Deng. Let's go and meet Granny Deng." It was also at this time that the auras of those bloodline warriors gradually weakened, which meant that they were far away from this place. "Great, they left. Let's go back quickly," Zi Qingsheng said. Qin Yun thought that he would have to fight a huge battle. Now, he heaved a sigh of relief. Following that, Qin Yun followed behind Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi and ran in the direction of Grandma Deng. On the way, Shui Tianzi had to stop from time to ask for directions and directions. Qin Yun ran with them for more than an hour. Because Shui Tianzi did not receive any more messages, he cut off the connection. It's been so long, yet there's still no news. Did something happen to them? Shui Tianzi said worriedly. Qin Yun said, "It should be nearby. Let's split up and search." "Cousin, follow me. It will be safer this way," Zi Qingsheng said. She was at the spirit martial realm. Even if she encountered a situation, she would be able to handle it. Qin Yun shook his head and said, "With one more person searching, we can find it faster. We can split up and search. You don't have to worry." Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi had thought that it was Qin Yun who had saved them. They felt that worrying about Qin Yun was unnecessary. "All right, this is a sound transmission jade talisman. Remember to contact me when the time comes." Shui Tianzi handed Qin Yun a jade talisman. After Qin Yun received it, he looked at it and nodded. "You guys have to be careful too." Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi left in 2 different directions. Qin Yun also chose a direction and began searching. At night, Qin Yun was alone in the pitch-black forest, searching in a random direction. He had been separated from Zi Qingsheng and the others for more than an hour. However, at that moment, he sensed a buzzing sound coming from the Jade Talisman. He hurriedly took it out and heard Shui Tianzi's anxious voice. "Ah Shui, hurry up and leave the Cloud Dragon Mountain range. It's very dangerous here." Qin Yun was taken aback. From Shui Tianzi's tone, it seemed that she had encountered danger and was extremely likely to die. He was also very anxious in his heart as he cursed in a low voice. "This woman is really something. She didn't even ask me for help when she was in danger. She's underestimating me too much." Helpless, he could only quickly refine a soul-chasing talisman. Zi Qingsheng had given him a small bottle of purple immortal dew. It contained Zi Qingsheng's aura, and after refining it into the soul-chasing talisman, he would be able to track Zi Qingsheng's location. "I wonder if Sister Steam Bun and the Water Fairy are together?" Qin Yun activated the soul-chasing talisman and sprinted in the direction indicated by the talisman. An hour later, he sensed the auras of a few bloodline warriors nearby. He hurriedly hid in the darkness and took out the Xian royal cannon at the same time. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded out in front of him. It was an intense battle between experts. "It's the aura of the Xian realm. Could it be Grandma Deng's?" Grandma Deng is being attacked by 4 bloodline warriors. Qin Yun was secretly alarmed as he hurriedly rushed over. After he went over, he saw a square cage that was a few meters long. Inside the cage were 4 women. They were the 3 sisters, Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. As for Grandma Deng, she was panting as she was surrounded by 3 bloodline warriors. If it wasn't for Grandma Deng being injured, you scum wouldn't be her match at all. Shui Tianzi scolded angrily. "Grandma Du is already on her way. She will definitely kill you bastards." Qin Yun also saw that Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingsheng had some injuries on their bodies. There were bruises on their faces. They must have been attacked earlier. Xiong Zishuan walked to the side of the cage and grabbed Shui Tianzi's throat. Then, he reached out to tear her clothes. Zi Qingsheng shouted angrily and struck out with her palm, pushing Xiong Zishuan away. "Grandma Deng, run. Just take revenge for us in the future." Shui Tianzi shouted. "You beasts, you will definitely die a horrible death." Zi Qingsheng also cursed as she helped Shui Tianzi to the back. Both of their injuries were not light. The one with the heaviest injuries was Little Fruit. She was leaning against the corner of the cage with her eyes slightly open. Her body was covered in bloodstains. Little Dessert, on the other hand, was scared out of her wits. Her face was covered in tears as she dealt with the injuries on her second sister's body. "Don't worry, I won't kill the 4 of you. You are our cauldrons. In a while, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death, haha." Xiong Zishuan laughed sinisterly. He wanted to stay here and watch over Zi Qingsheng and the others to prevent them from self-destructing their Dao cores. Grandma Deng struggled to fight. She had clearly been injured before and had been attacked by the 4 bloodline warriors, causing her injuries to worsen. Zi Qingsheng kept on cursing as she tried to persuade Grandma Deng to leave with tears in her eyes. Although Grandma Deng was an old woman, she was extremely strong. Her entire body was covered in wounds, and one of her eyes had been smashed. However, she did not make a sound as she tenaciously fought against the 3 bloodline warriors. No matter what, she would not leave by herself. This scene also infected Qin Yun, causing him to be incomparably furious. His powerful heavenly lion bloodline was also ignited by his anger. Although he wanted nothing more than to rush over, he knew that the 4 bloodline warriors were all at the spirit realm. He could not deal with them alone. Right now, the most important thing was to save them. He took out the body, securing talisman, and prepared to attack. Zi Qingsheng, who was cursing nonstop, was suddenly choked by Xiong Zishuan. Her face was also pinched by Xiong Zishuan's fingernails. It had already sunk into her flesh and was extremely cruel. Sister Steam Bun. When Qin Yun saw Zi Qingsheng's beautiful face being ravaged in such a manner, His heart immediately burned with rage. He flew over and threw out a few body-securing talismans at the same time. His body-securing talismans were all royal-grade spirit bone talismans, and they were refined with Zi Qingqing's help. After being thrown out, they could freeze the spirit realm for about 3 seconds. He used the Imperial Spirit technique to control the 4 body-securing talismans and accurately landed on the bodies of the 4 spirit realm warriors. "Grandma Dang now!" Qin Yun shouted as he arrived beside the cage in a flash. When Zi Qingqing and Shui Tianzi heard Qin Yun's voice, they were extremely worried. They were worried that Qin Yun would die here as well. Just as they were worrying, they saw a large cauldron appear and cover Xiongzi Xuan. It was the heavenly lion-dragon suppression cauldron. Although Grandma Deng was severely injured, she was still at the Xian martial realm. When she saw that the 3 bloodline warriors surrounding her had been frozen, she quickly attacked. She held 2 long tridents in both hands, and with an extremely fast speed, she appeared in front of a bloodline warrior and stabbed him dozens of times in an instant. Then, she hurriedly flashed in front of another martial artist and stabbed him dozens of times in an instant. Finally, she threw out 2 forks and pierced through the body of the 3rd bloodline martial artist. After she was done, she lay on the ground. Qin Yun, who was hiding in the darkness, also appeared. When Shui Tianzi saw the cauldron, she immediately understood that Zi Qingqing's cousin was that influential figure, Qin Yun. Qin Yun opened the cage in a few moves and took out a few royal grade light inscription talismans. He threw them onto Zi Qingqing and the others, allowing them to bathe in the healing light. Then, he rushed towards Grandma Deng. Qin Yun took out a circular jade vat. This jade vat was a royal-grade spirit artifact. It was engraved with light inscriptions and healing moon inscriptions. He placed Grandma Deng into the jade vat, and then placed a lot of purple coins into it. Cauldron of the Heavenly Lion Dragon Suppression. This fool's cousin is Qin Yun. A bloodline warrior who had been severely injured was incomparably terrified. A bloodline warrior of the spirit realm. This is a pretty good treasure. Qin Yun laughed sinisterly. He wanted to extract the martial spirits of these 3 bloodline warriors. The 3 bloodline warriors were only seriously injured but not dead. Qin Yun took out the soul-sealing pearl and began to extract the martial spirit. Zi Qingqing and the other 3 girls were illuminated by the light emitted by the light inscription talisman, and their injuries gradually healed. Little Fruit's recovery was rather slow. In order to protect her sister, she had suffered quite a few cuts. Grandma Deng, who was inside the jade vat, recovered rather quickly. She was also secretly amazed at the healing speed of the jade vat. At this moment, they all looked at Qin Yun. They saw Qin Yun place his palm on the abdomen of a burly man. Then, the burly man screamed in pain. In the darkness of the night, they could clearly see that after Qin Yun raised his palm, a small eagle covered in purplish gold lightning struggled to run out of the burly man's abdomen. Chapter 446. Golden Ape Totem Shui Tianzi, Grandma Deng, and the others were stunned. They had always thought that Qin Yun was only an inscription master. They never expected him to be a soul refiner. When Zi Qingqing was at the border, she already knew that Qin Yun could extract martial spirits. Purple Gold Thunder Eagle Martial Spirit. Average. Your Thunder Eagle bloodline is not bad. Qin Yun took out a blood-sucking pearl and placed it on the wound of the burly man. He frantically absorbed the Thunder Eagle bloodline. Zi Qingqing and the others were all alarmed when they saw this. This was because such an act of absorbing an inherited bloodline would be wanted by all the bloodline aristocrat families. Because Qin Yun had the Heavenly Lion Totem, he had long been targeted by the bloodline aristocrat families. Therefore, he was not afraid at all. He walked towards another bloodline warrior and quickly drew out a martial spirit. It was the purple gold giant ape martial spirit. What bloodline does this guy have? Qin Yun asked curiously. It's the golden ape bloodline. Shui Tianzi replied softly. She had already known that Zi Qingqing's mysterious cousin was not simple. Now, it seemed that he was much more terrifying than she had imagined. Qin Yun, are you going to become enemies with all the bloodline aristocrat families in the world? The bloodline warrior said angrily. You were the ones who made me your enemy first. Qin Yun smiled as he took out the blood-sucking pearl and placed it on the bloodline warrior's body. He walked towards the last bloodline warrior with a grin. Water Fairy, where's this guy? What bloodline is he? Fire Tiger bloodline. Martial spirit is also the purple gold fire tiger martial spirit. Shui Tianzi swallowed her saliva because Qin Yun was about to extract another martial spirit. Very quickly, the bloodline warrior let out a series of painful screams. This made Zi Qingqing and the others feel extremely pleased. At this moment, Mo said to Qin Yun, Big Brother Yun, there's someone here with a totem. That guy with the golden ape bloodline. When Qin Yun heard that, he hurriedly walked over and peeled off the man's clothes. He saw totem tattoos on his back. Ha! You didn't get my heavenly lion totem, but let me get your totem first. After he finished speaking, he took out the bloodline warrior's Dao core and killed him. After the bloodline warrior died, the totem on his body naturally entered Qin Yun's body and was obtained by him. Once a martial artist who was born with a totem was killed, he would be able to obtain the opponent's totem. Those tattooed totems in Totem Pavilion would not work. Qin Yun looked at the beads in his hand. There were soul-sealing beads, blood-sucking beads, and spirit martial realm Dao cores. There were 3 of each. These things could not even be bought with purple coins. He came to the side of the iron cage and covered Xiong Zishuan with the heavenly lion-dragon suppressing cauldron. Qin Yun walked over to Zi Qingsheng and caressed her face. He said with a pained expression, Sister Steam Bun, does your face still hurt? It doesn't hurt anymore. I'm fine now. Zi Qingsheng also knew that Qin Yun liked to rub her face the most. She also thought that her face was going to be ruined. Thankfully, Qin Yun had taken action in time. If not, they would have suffered terrible consequences. Zi Qingsheng recalled that when she was at the 9 Extinction Profound Gate, she had helped Qin Yun refine many things. One of them was that huge vat. Now, she understood that Qin Yun had already begun his preparations at that time. Shui Tianzi saw Qin Yun caress Zi Qingqing's face and smiled meaningfully. Qin Yun came to the side of the heavenly lion-dragon suppressing cauldron and injected a few powerful streams of mental energy into it. It caused Xiong Zishuan's head to ache as he screamed nonstop. You black bear! Qin Yun poured Xiong Zishuan out and waved a pair of angry fists, constantly striking Xiong Zishuan's body. Xiong Zishuan wailed. Qin Yun, how dare you hit me like this? You're dead for sure. The one who's dead is you. Qin Yun lifted Xiong Zishuan up and let him look at the corpses of his companions. When Xiong Zishuan saw this, he was incomparably terrified. He cried and begged, Don't kill me, I know I was wrong. I am a beast. If you kill me, you will dirty your hands. Just as he finished speaking, he cried out in pain. His martial spirit was being extracted by Qin Yun. Following that, Qin Yun used the blood-sucking pearl to absorb his inherited bloodline. Originally, when we entered the Cloud Dragon Mountain range, we would encounter all sorts of dangers. Everyone should have joined forces to resist them. However, you beasts actually took advantage of the chaos to attack us. Aren't you courting death? Qin Yun threw Xiong Zishuan, who had been sucked dry, to the ground and took out his Dao core. Xiong Zishuan regretted it to death, but it was already too late. Before he died, he had seen someone even more terrifying than an evil demon. Grandma Deng came out of the jade vat and hurriedly thanked Qin Yun. She also promised that she would never tell anyone about what had happened today. Qin Yun felt that it was fine even if it was leaked. After all, he had long been wanted by the bloodline aristocrat clan and Totem Pavilion. After Little Fruit recovered, she was also grateful to Qin Yun. She rarely spoke and was usually ice cold. However, at this moment, her voice was very sweet and her eyes were filled with sincere gratitude. Grandma Deng said, This place is too dangerous. I'll bring Little Fruit and Little Dessert back. Are you guys going back together? Qin Yun shook his head and said no. I want to go to the immortal graveyard to take a look. Be careful on the way. Little brat, I'll accompany you. We'll meet up with Grandma Du with her here. We'll be much safer. Qinshang said. I'll go too. Shui Tianzi said, Grandma Ding, bring the two of them back. Grandma Ding looked at Qin Yun and knew that Qin Yun was extremely capable. With him around, it would definitely be much safer. All right, take care, Grandma Ding said. Elder sister, you have to take good care of young Master Qin. He's our great benefactor. Little Dessert looked at Qin Yun with a look of worship and said softly, Young Master Qin, can you let me see your true appearance? Qin Yun said with a smile, Of course. He took off the human skin mask, revealing a well-defined face. He was handsome and resolute, with a friendly smile on his face, making him look very approachable. You said you were ugly before? You really lied to me. Little Dessert laughed. Shui Tianzi's charming eyes were like silk as she looked at Qin Yun's handsome face. It was as though she had seen a delicious dish. After bidding farewell to Qin Yun and company, Little Fruit and Little Dessert left with Grandma Ding. Qinshang said, I should leave quickly as well. Wait. Qin Yun took out a few fire talismans and set the area ablaze. He wanted to destroy the aura here. Then he used the earthquake divine art to cause a strong earthquake, causing the ground to collapse rapidly. In the blink of an eye, this area collapsed. Qinshang took out her carriage and said, Hurry up and find Grandma. Do I wonder what the situation is like now? The commotion caused by the battle between the martial kings and the dragons was getting smaller and smaller. A few powerful Nether Realm heavenly lions chased after a group of Xian martial realm warriors, scattering the large group. Qin Yun sat in the carriage and said with a smile, To think that you are at the spirit martial realm. In the end, you actually want me to save you. Sister Steam Bun, I've saved you several times. Shui Tianzi smiled and said, Sister Steam Bun, why aren't you thanking your benefactor and dedicating your life to him? Water Fairy, don't cause trouble. Qinshang said in a tender voice. Shui Tianzi came to Qinshang's side and said with a smile, I never thought that the #1 beauty of the northern region would actually be called Sister Steam Bun. I told you before that you were a little fat, but you didn't admit it. As she spoke, she pinched Qinshang's face and smiled. Qinshang pushed her away and glared at her. Water Fairy, don't leak out what happened to Qin Yun today. Shui Tianzi came to Qin Yun's side and leaned on his shoulder. She smiled coquettishly and said, Don't worry, I definitely won't leak it. My little benefactor, how do you want me to repay you? Will you give your body to me? As she spoke, her clothes slightly slid, revealing her snow-white shoulders and beautiful collarbone. It was extremely beautiful. Qin Yun grabbed Shui Tianzi's delicate, jade-like hand and said with a smile, Water Fairy, do you really want to devote your life to me? Be my woman? Of course. Shui Tianzi kissed Qin Yun's cheek and smiled charmingly. I'm serious. Qin Yun nodded and said, Then it's settled. From now on, you will be my woman. Shui Tianzi stared blankly for a moment, and a blush immediately appeared on her face. She was even more charming and moved. She glanced at Qinshang and said softly, Little brat, I love you to death. When will it start? Qinshang was also stunned. She said with some jealousy, Water Fairy, don't play with the feelings of a little brat. Don't think that I'm usually so coquettish, but I'm very loyal. Qin Yun is the only man in my life. Shui Tianzi looked at Qin Yun with a deep and charming gaze that seemed to be able to hook away a person's soul. Qin Yun said with a smile, Water Fairy, don't misunderstand. I just want you to follow me and help me refine talismans or something. Of course, you don't have to leave the Moon Profound Valley, but you have to stay in the 9 Extinction Gate in the future. You little brat, you really don't know how to flirt. Shui Tianzi said with a face full of hidden bitterness before gently biting Qin Yun's shoulder. Qinshang immediately smiled and said, Water Fairy, he has a wife. Don't even think about it. What? He has a wife? Who is it? Hong Mengshu? Shui Tianzi hurriedly asked. No, you'll know who it is in the future, Zi Qingsheng said. Shui Tianzi said in a low voice, Little brother Yun, I don't mind. As long as I can be with you. Don't worry, you'll be with me often in the future, with the help of a spirit martial realm cultivator. It's too convenient. Qin Yun said with a smile. You said that you would devote your life to me. You mind now? All right. Shui Tianzi said with hidden bitterness. I'll follow you from now on and do odd jobs for you for the rest of my life. Just as Zi Qingsheng was about to speak, she felt an aura pressing down on her. She hurriedly controlled the carriage in the air to avoid it. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Something had fallen below. It's a dragon. That dragon fell down. Zi Qingsheng hurriedly shouted. Qin Yun immediately rushed out of the carriage and saw a dragon lying on the ground. He hurriedly took out the dragon suppression cauldron and swooped down to the ground to keep the dragon inside. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi had just come out when they saw this scene. While they were shocked, they were also overjoyed. That was because Qin Yun had obtained the dragon. Sister Steam Bun, put away your carriage. Let's run. After Qin Yun finished speaking, he pulled Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi into the darkness and quietly flew away from this place. Chapter 447. Heavenly Lion, Suspicious Cloud. It wasn't easy for the group of martial kings to severely injure the dragon and flee. Just as they were about to chase after it, they suddenly couldn't sense the dragon's aura anymore. That dragon fell down just now. There are traces of it falling down. A bloodline martial king said, Many trees have been crushed. Such obvious traces, we can see it. The question is, where did the dragon go? The dragon's aura suddenly disappeared, and its body is so huge. It's definitely not something that an ordinary storage magic treasure can store. You have to know that if that dragon is still alive, the storage magic treasure it needs will have to be of a higher level. Therefore, we can rule out the possibility of someone getting ahead of us. As long as it's a Xian beast, it can transform into a human. This dragon is much more powerful than a Xian beast. It might even turn into a human and hide. Then let's split up and see if there's anyone nearby. Dozens of martial kings hurriedly split into multiple directions to search for the dragon that had disappeared. The dragon that the group of martial kings were searching for had been kept into the dragon suppression cauldron by Qin Yun. They had long since left the place where the dragon had fallen. Qin Yun happily held the hands of the two beauties and quickly shuttled through the forest. He was so happy that he could die. He really did not expect that the dragon would suddenly land near them. Sister Steam Bun, I have to say, the route you chose is really good. It allowed us to pick up a huge bargain, Qin Yun said with a smile. Brat, I don't want that dragon anymore, but you have to promise me that you will help me craft talismans and forge artifact for free in the future. I'll pay for the materials, Zi Qingsheng said. Shui Tianzi also said, Brat, Big Sister is also yours. I don't want that dragon either. You have to promise not to kick me away in the future. Qin Yun also knew that Shui Tianzi was sticking to him because he was an inscription master and a soul refiner. Furthermore, he was a very talented one. In the long run, fawning on him early would definitely have great benefits in the future. Don't worry, Qin Yun said with a smile. Then don't tell Grandma Du about this, Shui Tianzi said in a low voice. The fewer people who know about this, the more we can guarantee that it won't be leaked out. Zi Qingsheng also nodded and said with a smile, Little brat, good people will be rewarded. You just saved us and got a dragon. In the future, you must help others more. Qin Yun said with a smile. That group of martial kings worked hard to take down the dragon. They will definitely be worried about how to distribute it. Now that the dragon is in my hands, they don't have to worry about it anymore. I've helped them solve a problem. If the group of martial kings heard these words, they would definitely vomit blood in anger. Hong Mengshu's father is also involved. Your relationship with Hong Mengshu is so good. You have to make it up to her in the future. She was quite considerate of others. That dragon was still alive, but inside the heavenly lion dragon suppressing cauldron, it could not come out at all. The heavenly lion dragon suppression cauldron was specially used to deal with dragons. If Qin Yun did not have the heavenly lion dragon suppression cauldron, he would not know how to obtain the dragon. Not long after, they met up with Old Lady Du. When Old Lady Du saw that Zi Qingsheng and company were fine, she felt relieved. Those bastards from the bloodline aristocrat clan, I'll get even with them sooner or later. Shui Tianzi looked at Old Lady Du and the two elders and said, "Grandmother, we're all fine. Don't tell anyone about this." Previously, when she had sent a voice transmission, she had only told Old Lady Du that they had escaped from their predicament. Grandma Deng, on the other hand, had brought little dessert and little fruit back. As for the result, Old Lady Du seemed to be able to guess that the few outstanding bloodline warriors of the spirit realm had been killed. The death of a bloodline warrior was a sensational matter because over the years, bloodline warriors were rarely killed. Not to mention the death of 4 bloodline warriors of the spirit realm. All right, let's hurry up and meet up with the people from the other sex. Old Lady Du took out her carriage. Qin Yun rested in the carriage as he listened to Old Lady Du constantly curse the martial kings. Old Lady Du cursed in a low voice. These bastards, they agreed to go to the immortal graveyard desolate domain, but they went to slay a dragon halfway. Furthermore, they didn't care about us at all, causing us to almost be killed by the heavenly lion. Zi Qingsheng said, "There should be casualties among the people from the other sex, right?" Old Lady Du nodded and said, "Dozens of people died. 2 of them died at the Xian realm. It's all the fault of those martial kings. They're really a bunch of sick bastards." Qin Yun felt that if the group of martial kings did not injure the dragon, he would not have the chance to obtain it. Of course, only he, Zi Qingsheng, and Shui Tianzi knew about this. What about those heavenly lions? Shui Tianzi asked worriedly before glancing at Qin Yun. That was because Qin Yun could release a nether realm heavenly lion. Old Lady Du shook her head and said, "I don't know." In short, a group of Xian realm warriors and I were being chased closely. When we thought that we wouldn't be able to escape, that black heavenly lion suddenly disappeared. Qin Yun secretly suspected that those heavenly lions were summoned by someone. This was because the nether realm heavenly lion could not stay in the human world for too long. Furthermore, it needed a period of time before it could be summoned again. Qin Yun could only summon the nether realm heavenly lion for more than 2 hours. He could only summon it again every 6 hours. Looks like there's a very strong person hiding in this forest. Qin Yun suddenly said, "That guy might have always wanted to slay a dragon." "Why do you think so?" Old Lady Du asked. "Those heavenly lions are all nether realm heavenly lions. They were summoned through a divine ability and came from the nether realm." Qin Yun said, "They definitely didn't come out by themselves." Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi looked at each other. They were secretly shocked. They also knew that Qin Yun had mastered a divine ability that allowed him to summon heavenly lions. Qin Yun said, "Only a martial king can summon a martial king nether realm heavenly lion. However, that guy summoned quite a few heavenly lions. His strength is definitely stronger than a martial king." Shui Tianzi asked worriedly, "Where's that guy?" "Grandma Du, the immortal tomb you went to with Jian Xuanzi and the others last time was opened. I suspect that that person ran out at that time." Qin Yun said. He remembered that at that time, a nether realm heavenly lion ran out and fought with the dragon. Shui Tianzi said, "We have to follow those martial kings closely. The journey to the immortal graveyard desolate domain will definitely not be that easy." Qin Yun nodded and said, "There's a large group of ghost beasts outside. We have to be careful as well." At daybreak, Old Lady Du controlled the carriage and arrived at a forest. The trees in this forest were quite far apart and sparse. The sunlight could shine into the forest, causing the forest to become tranquil and beautiful. At this moment, many large carriages arrived one after another. Inside the carriages were the Xian realm and young disciples of the various Xian sections. Old Lady Du walked out of the carriage and chatted with a few Xian realm warriors. The people from the other sects were also full of complaints as they constantly complained about the martial kings. Because at that time, there were 2 or 3 martial kings present, so they didn't have to be in such a sorry state. However, those martial kings all rushed to attack that dragon like a swarm of bees. Suddenly, a sorrowful and angry roar came from afar. Zishuan. It was the angry roar of the Xiong family's martial king. He seemed to have discovered that his son had died. Qin Yun, Zi Qingsheng, and Shui Tianzi were all in the carriage. When they heard the angry roar of the Xiong family's martial king, they did not bat an eyelid. Qin Yun felt that the Xiong family's martial king would not discover anything. At most, he would only see the ground collapse. Only the Nether Realm Heavenly Lion could cause such an earthquake. At that time, he had even left behind the aura of the Nether Realm Heavenly Lion. Mu Feng was also outside. He shook his head and sighed. Looks like the losses of the bloodline aristocrat family are not small either. Many of the Xian sect masters were secretly delighted when they heard this. They were only gloating in their hearts and did not dare to say anything. Following that, a few angry roars could be heard. It was obvious that the few bloodline martial kings had found out that their family's disciples of the spirit realm had died. The other martial kings did not find the dragon and returned one after another. When they saw the mocking gazes of those at the Xian realm, they felt extremely depressed in their hearts. This was because they had worked so hard to besiege that dragon, but to no avail. They had even been mocked in their hearts by this group of Xian realm warriors. The ones who suffered the most were the bloodline aristocrat clans. They had lost their young bloodline warriors of the spirit realm. The number of people who had come with them had lessened. Some of them had died, and some of them had returned with their elders. This was because this place was too dangerous. Hong Mengshu left with the 2 elders of the Xian martial realm. That damn girl from the Long family. Didn't she say that the dragon was in the immortal graveyard desolate domain? Why is it still outside? That's right. There are also a few black heavenly lions. They really caught us off guard. That dragon was seriously injured by us and escaped. It's no longer a threat. What we need to worry about are those heavenly lions that appear and disappear like ghosts. With us here, everyone doesn't have to worry. The heavenly lion was in existence as strong as the dragon, and there were quite a few of them. Even the martial kings were somewhat worried, but they were still on their way. Those people from the bloodline aristocrat clans wished that they could kill the heavenly lions. This was because they believed that the spirit realm bloodline warriors were killed by the heavenly lions. There were more than 10 bloodline aristocrat clans here. At this moment, they were all restraining their auras, worried that they would attract the heavenly lions. The most important thing right now was to enter the immortal graveyard desolate domain. There would definitely be treasures in the immortal graveyard. This was something that everyone was certain of. This was because the immortal tomb that Jian, Xuanzi, and company had opened had a very powerful heavenly lion dragon suppression cauldron. It was an ancient Dao artifact, and within the immortal graveyard desolate domain, there were definitely many hidden treasures. Only the inscription palace, totem pavilion, and a few bloodline aristocrat clans knew the location of the immortal graveyard desolate domain. Old Madame Du and company did not know. Qin Yun also discovered that Mu Feng's carriage was following them. It was obvious that he had purposely stayed nearby so that he could take action in time if there was any danger. Mu Feng was extremely protective of Qin Yun because he could obtain great benefits through Qin Yun. Especially after he knew that Qin Yun had become the sect master of the Blue Spirit Star Palace's Inscription Gate. He knew very well that the inheritance of the Inscription Gate was a very powerful star in Moon Rune. Everyone was majestically traveling on the ground. At night, Qin Yun's expression suddenly changed. The heavenly lions are here. Old Madame Du trusted Qin Yun very much. She hurriedly controlled the carriage to fly at high speed. Chapter 448. Within the desolate domain, a few powerful heavenly lions pounced into the crowd. Many martial kings also tried their best to resist, allowing the others to evacuate. Boom, boom, boom. A series of tremors broke the silence in the darkness, causing many of the nearby forests to collapse and split open. A great battle was about to break out. Many martial kings and a few nether-realm heavenly lions began to fight. Many pieces of the carriage were blown everywhere by the violent winds that erupted from the battle. Only Grandma Du and Mu Feng ran fast enough, so they were not affected. A few nether-realm heavenly lions pounced in. If they didn't use the heavenly lion fighting dragon claw, they would roar out the heavenly lion's roar or unleash waves of heavenly lion thunder force. Not to mention a martial artist of the Xian realm. Even a martial king would find it difficult to handle. There were more than 10 Xian realm martial artists who ran slowly. Their luck wasn't that good, and they were torn to shreds by the lion's claws. More than 10 spirit realm martial artists also died. Only the powerful martial kings were fine. Even dozens of martial kings found it extremely difficult to face those terrifying nether realm heavenly lions. Right now, they could only stall for time and let the others leave quickly to avoid heavy casualties. Grandma Du followed General Manager Mu. You should know where it's safe. Qin Yun said, this fellow runs quite fast. I have to say, the people from the Divine Inscription Palace really do have some skills. Old Madame Du smiled and said, if we ran a little slower, we might all be in trouble. Hearing the tremors coming from outside, Zi Qingsheng and the others felt a lingering fear in their hearts. Mu Feng's speed was very fast, and even old Madame Du found it difficult to keep up. As for the people behind them, they could not help but curse in their hearts. That was because Mu Feng of the Divine Inscription Palace and old Madame Du of the Moon Profound Valley knew beforehand that a heavenly lion would appear. However, he did not warn them. It wasn't that he did not want to remind them, but after Qin Yun and Mu Feng discovered the heavenly lion, it was too late. One had to know that the powerful heavenly lion was extremely fast. When Qin Yun sensed the aura of the heavenly lion, it was only a few thousand meters away. In the next instant, it attacked. When they entered, many people felt that their team was very strong. After all, there were dozens of martial kings and over 100 Xian realm martial artists. However, they were defeated by a few heavenly lions. Many people secretly blamed those martial kings because heavenly lions and dragons are old enemies. If those martial kings did not severely injure the dragons, then there would be dragons to restrain the heavenly lions, and they would not be in such a sorry state. At this moment, even the martial kings secretly regretted attacking the dragon. They made great efforts to besiege the dragon. Not only did he fail, he was also besieged by the heavenly lions. The heavenly lions only fought for a short period of time before running away in a hurry. The martial kings heaved a sigh of relief and chased after Mu Feng and company. This is just as Qin Yun guessed. The nether realm heavenly lion was indeed summoned, so after coming out for a while, it went back to rest. We're finally safe. Old Madame Du looked at the starry sky outside the window. Those nether realm heavenly lions were indeed summoned. I wonder when it will appear again. Zi Qingsheng said worriedly, I wonder if there are any nether realm heavenly lions in the immortal graveyard desolate domain. If the immortal graveyard desolate domain is really dangerous, we must leave immediately, Qin Yun said. Old Madame Du and the others nodded. After all, saving their lives was more important. At daybreak, cheers could be heard from outside. Qin Yun and company hurriedly walked out of the carriage and floated in the air. They saw a very ancient bridge below. It was a broken bridge. This bridge wasn't very big, and it was entangled by many huge grass vines. If it wasn't for the fact that it had been cleaned up, it would have been difficult to discover that there was a bridge here. Qin Yun was no stranger to this kind of bridge. Previously, he had entered the ancient garden through this kind of broken bridge. Let's join hands and open the passage to the desolate domain. The martial king of the Divine Inscription Palace shouted. Once we enter, we don't have to worry about the heavenly lion's siege. Not long after, the bridge was filled with people. The martial king stood at the front, while the Xian realm cultivators stood at the back. As for the others, they were just watching from outside the bridge. 1, 2, 3, begin. The martial king of the divine inscription palace shouted loudly. The martial king and the Xian realm warriors released their power together and poured it into the bridge. Soon, a screen of light appeared at the broken bridge. The passageway had opened. Inject some more energy so that the gate to the desolate domain can be maintained for a period of time. The martial king of the divine inscription palace said. Many of the juniors are extremely excited because they would soon be able to enter the legendary, huge, immortal tomb. Qingyun did not know if this immortal tomb was related to Xiaqiru or not. He had to go in to confirm. When you go in, you have to be careful. The desolate domain has been closed for many years. There must be many dangers hidden inside. Zi Qingsheng said in a low voice. Qingyun nodded and said, when the time comes, we must not rush in front. At this moment, someone shouted, the passage is open. Who will go in first? No one knew what dangers were inside. If they encountered danger inside, they might not be able to come out. You are martial kings, and you are so powerful. You should be the ones to go in first. Someone shouted, we are martial kings, it's true. If there is any danger inside, and we lose a martial king, even 10 Xian martial realm cultivators won't be able to make up for it. A martial king coldly snorted. Who would go in first? This has become a very important question. The martial king of the divine inscription palace said, I'll try using a puppet. He took out a puppet and threw it in. After the puppet entered the light screen, the martial king frowned and said, I've lost connection. This won't work. Do any of you have a pet beast? Let's put it in and take a look. At most, we will only lose a pet beast. Mu Feng said with a smile. No one was willing to do such a thing. Pet beasts were also very precious. The entire place was silent. No one was willing to sacrifice their pet beast. Suddenly, an eccentric long-bearded old man said, How about this? Let the sect with the least contribution go in first. I feel that the Moon Profound Valley's contribution is the smallest. Furthermore, Zi Qingqing's cousin doesn't belong to any sect at all. This cousin wants to take advantage of us, but he doesn't pay anything. This is too unfair to us. When Qingyun saw the old man, he was immediately infuriated. This old man was Wang Tianshi. He was actually still alive. Many of the martial kings here had been tricked by this cousin when they were guessing the vat. Now that they heard this suggestion, they all agreed. Idiot cousin, if you want us to enter the immortal graveyard desolate domain, you should do something now. Hurry up and go in. Wang Tianshi laughed sinisterly. He had also been cheated of more than 100 million purple coins. In his heart, he hated this cousin of his. Zi Qingsheng hurriedly said, Then we won't go in. That should be fine, right? Cousin, don't listen to me. Let's go back. Wang Tianshi sneered, No. Your Moon Profound Valley originally did not know where the immortal graveyard desolate domain was. Now that you have followed us and know the location, you have taken advantage of us. You have to know that we have put in a lot of effort to investigate this place. Many martial kings expressed their stance and allowed their idiot cousin to enter. All right, I'll go in. Qingyun gritted his teeth and said, Cousin, don't go in. Let me go. Zi Qingsheng hurriedly pulled him back. Shui Tianzi said, Qingsheng, step back and let me in. My speed is much faster than yours. If there's any danger inside, I can quickly retreat. Qingyun said, Sisters, although you are women, you are very brave. You are much stronger than those bloodline martial kings. They are all a bunch of cowards. They are even inferior to women. With that, he quickly stepped forward and charged at an extremely fast speed towards the light screen that had appeared at the broken bridge. Qingyun's speed was extremely fast. Before Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi could react, Qingyun had already entered the light screen. When old Madame Du saw that they were about to rush over, she hurriedly stood in front of them and said in a low voice, Don't get yourself killed. This kid is a fool with a fool's luck. Nothing will happen to him. Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingsheng were burning with anxiety. Even though they knew that there was danger inside, they still wanted to rush in. However, they were stopped by old Madame Du. After Qingyun entered, he was still on a bridge. It was the other end of the broken bridge. Now, he understood that this bridge was complete. It was just that a section of it was in the desolate domain. The last time I entered the ancient garden, if it was normal, I should have arrived at the other end of the bridge. Qin Yun thought to himself. He carefully walked on the bridge and looked at the situation in the immortal graveyard desolate domain. It immediately caused him to fall into a state of shock. It was very spacious inside, and he couldn't see the end of it. He had thought that it was just a small space. The 9 suns hung in the sky, and the time was the same as outside. There were also many mountains and forests in the immortal graveyard desolate domain. After walking out of the bridge, there was a large ancient forest. The trees in the ancient forest were somewhat pitch black, especially the leaves. It was as if they had been dyed black. From time to time, gusts of cold wind would blow through the black forest. It was extremely frightening. Ghost beast. Qin Yun released his mental energy and immediately felt a chill run down his spine. That was because the ancient forest was filled with ghost beasts. The ghost beasts seemed to have sensed him as well. Crap! Qin Yun used the power of the dragon-resisting boots and quickly ran. In just a few moments, he had rushed to the light screen of the bridge and left the immortal graveyard desolate domain. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi had been anxiously looking at the broken bridge the entire time. When they suddenly saw Qin Yun come out, they heaved a long sigh of relief. When everyone saw that the fool could come out safely, they couldn't help but cheer, thinking that it was very safe inside. How's the situation inside? Wang Tianxia quickly asked. When it came to ancient tombs, this kind of heavenly master was more proficient and was the authority in this area. Qin Yun said, after I entered, I saw a large forest. There were many ghost beasts in the forest. When everyone heard this, the smiles on their faces immediately disappeared. There were a large number of ghost beasts inside. This was not good news. Is this true? If there are a large number of ghost beasts, how did you run back? Wang Tianxia asked in disbelief. Qin Yun had cheated many people in the past, so everyone was skeptical. Chapter 449. Oxhead Ghost Soldier. When everyone heard what their foolish cousin had just said, they couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. If he really wanted to trick them, the consequences would be unimaginable. Qin Yun said, because my cousin wants to go in, I won't lie. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to take a look. Those ghost beasts are very strong for me, but they might not be the same for a martial king. Everyone looked at each other. No one wanted to go in. I'll go in. After saying that, the Hong Ing martial king flew in. Not long after, he came out and said with a serious expression, there are a lot of ghost beasts inside, and there are all kinds of them. There are even some poisonous ghost beasts. Mu Feng asked with a smile, can the spirit martial realm deal with those ghost beasts? Hong Ying nodded. It should be no problem. Martial Dao realm cultivators might have to be careful. As for whether or not there are powerful ghost kings inside, I don't know. Wang Tianxia said, this kind of large immortal tomb is not absolutely safe to begin with. If you don't take the risk, how can you obtain immortal treasures? If anyone is afraid, they can go back now. After a moment of silence, no one left. All right, then let's go in now. However, we have to arrange how to enter. The martial king of the divine inscription palace said, I'll go in first. Who is willing to follow me in? With someone taking the lead, the other martial kings followed. Zi Qingcheng walked to Qin Yun's side and held his hand tightly. She was worried that something would happen to him here. Shui Tianzi also asked Qin Yun about the situation inside. Qin Yun said, when we enter, we need to pay attention to the Ghost King. The other small ghost beasts will not affect us. Old Madame Du said, Qingcheng, Tianzi, you guys just need to take care of this kid. Don't worry about us. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi nodded. Qin Yun found it somewhat funny. In this place, he was the least afraid of ghost beasts. After the martial kings entered, the crowd followed suit. As soon as they entered, a violent gust of wind assaulted them. The martial kings led the way and used their powerful strength to kill the ghost beasts. Qin Yun said with a frown, these fellows sure have big hearts. Why do they make such a big commotion? The desolate domain which had been sealed for many years, was immediately enveloped by a series of rumbling sounds. The martial king's attack caused a great commotion. It created a series of hurricanes that swept in all directions. The forest in front of them was instantly flattened. Zi Qingchang said, "I hope there won't be a powerful ghost king. I wonder if there are any heavenly lions here?" Shui Tianzi looked behind and realized that the passage was closed. The heavenly lion shouldn't be able to enter, but if we encounter any danger, it won't be easy to get out. Qin Yin was secretly worried. However, since he was already here, he could only take it one step at a time. Half a day passed, and it was already dusk. It had to be said that the group of martial kings were still very strong. Along the way, they killed many powerful ghost beasts and flattened dozens of mountains. They opened up a smooth path that led straight ahead. On the way, Qin Yin was picking up soul essences. They were used to refine spirit artifacts. What made him curious was that many people did not want the soul essence. They only wanted the bones and skin of the ghost beasts. Zi Qingcheng also helped pick it up and whispered, "Cousin, what do you want these things for? No one else wants it." "It's useful to me," Qin Yin said. Only Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingcheng helped pick it up while old Madame Du and the others protected them from the side. Enough! When Qin Yin saw that he was a distance behind the people in front of him, he shouted, "Let's follow them." They hurriedly chased after him. Not long after, the people in front of them stopped. They were standing in front of a lake. When Qin Yin saw the lake, he could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. This was the Myriad Star Lake. He hurriedly floated into the air and looked down at the huge lake. With a glance, he could tell that the lake was about the same size as the Myriad Star Lake. The only difference was that the island in the middle of the lake was very big, and there was a huge circular black building built on it. From high up in the sky, it looked like a black round cake floating on the surface of the water. The immortal tomb was in the middle of the lake. Many people were extremely excited. No one flew over because the entire lake was enveloped by a huge formation. Qin Yin looked down at Wang Tianshi. He was digging everywhere as if he was looking for something. Not long after, he dug up a lot of things, and many people hurriedly went over to help him dig. Wang Tianshi dug out a black sacrificial altar. When Qin Yin saw the sacrificial altar, he cursed in his heart. That was because this sacrificial altar was exactly the same as the one from last time. He hurriedly landed on the ground and came to old Madame Du's side. Wang Tianshi said, "This is a sacrificial altar. You need to sacrifice something in order to open the formation and enter." The martial king of the divine inscription palace asked, "What do you need to sacrifice? Life?" Wang Tianshi looked at Qin Yin in the crowd and said with a chuckle, "Brat, it's time for you to pay the price." Zi Qingsheng and old Madame Du were instantly infuriated. It was the same last time, and it was the same this time. "Do you need to bleed?" "No problem." Qin Yin walked over and said, "As long as you don't kill me, I have a lot of blood. It should be enough." Mu Feng also knew that Qin Yin had sacrificed himself once before. It could only be said that it was too coincidental that he would meet him every time. He also hurriedly walked over and said, "This little brother drank with me last time, and we had a very good chat. He could be considered my friend. If it's just letting out blood, then don't harm his life." When Wang Tianshi saw Mu Feng come out to protect him, he could only nod. Mu Feng said, "All of you step back. I want to use the flag array to help him recover his lost blood." As he spoke, he took out many array flags and inserted them beside the altar. When Zi Qingcheng saw Mu Feng's help, she felt much more at ease. She was unable to save Qin Yin last time and felt extremely guilty. Not only could Mu Feng's array flag help Qin Yin recover his blood, it could also hide the aura of his heavenly lion bloodline. After Qin Yin went over to bleed, the sacrificial altar seemed to burst into flames. Everyone cheered when they saw this. This meant that the sacrifice was effective. As Qin Yin continued to bleed, the array that enveloped the lake disappeared. There were also martial kings that flew towards the center of the lake. "I'm fine. Let's go as well," Qin Yin said. Zi Qingsheng nodded in relief before floating in the air and flying towards the center of the lake. In the evening, the setting sun shone down. However, the black lake water was still black and did not reflect the setting sun. This was extremely strange. As Qingyun flew above the lake, he said to Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi beside him, "You must be careful later. If anything happens, do not fall into the water." His intuition told him that it was extremely dangerous underwater. Everyone arrived at the small island in the middle and looked at the huge circular building. The black building was tens of thousands of meters wide and over 100 meters tall. From the sky, it looked like a flat black pancake. Here, there was a red door. At the entrance of the door, there was a pitch-black minotaur. The minotaur was more than 2 meters tall. Only his head was that of a cow, and his body was filled with strong muscles. Judging from his aura, he wasn't very strong, probably around the spirit realm. Someone's finally here. The minotaur held a chain that emitted black gas and spoke with a hoarse voice. "Are you the ghost soldier guarding the door here?" Wang Tianshi walked forward and asked. The minotaur replied, "That's right. I'm the 500th generation of ghost soldiers guarding the door. Don't look at me, because I'm not strong, but I will decide whether or not you can enter this immortal tomb. If you kill me, you will be able to enter. However, at that time, the powerful ghost beasts in the lake will also wake up. At the bottom of the lake, there are many ghost kings sleeping." Wang Tianshi asked, "Then what conditions do you need us to agree to?" The minotaur said, "If I let you in, I will also be severely punished, but I won't die. If you don't want to alarm those ghost kings and enter the immortal tomb, then you can only bribe me." Being able to bribe the minotaur made everyone feel a lot more at ease. If they were to face many ghost kings, even those martial kings would find it difficult. "How can I bribe you? Give me a condition," Wang Tianshi asked. "I want those 2 women. Let them be happy for me, and you can bribe me." The minotaur pointed at Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi and said, "Not only did the 2 beauties have peerless beauty, their cultivation was also not low. They were both at the spirit realm." "No problem." Wang Tianshi laughed sinisterly. Old Madame Du was instantly enraged and shouted, "We're not going in. It's not up to you now." A bloodline martial king hurriedly flew over and blocked old Madame Du. Following that, a few bloodline martial kings also came over and surrounded old Madame Du and company. As long as they entered, they would be able to obtain immortal treasures. In order to enter safely, he had only sacrificed 2 women. Even though there was a king-level sect protecting the Moon Profound Valley, they would not make a sound. Otherwise, they would become enemies with many bloodline aristocrat families. Hong Ying rushed over and said coldly, "That's enough. Scram." A bloodline martial king said as he struck Hong Ying with his palm. Following that, a few more martial kings appeared and surrounded Hong Ying. "If you don't want to die, then don't make a sound. If you want to step forward bravely, then be prepared to die." The Xiong family's martial king sneered. "If you obediently shut up, you might even be able to follow us inside." Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi were also captured by the 2 martial kings and escorted to the front. At that moment, Qingyun was also caught by Mu Feng. Qingyun roared angrily, "Let me go." Mu Feng sent a voice transmission to Qingyun and said, "Qingyun, I know you are very angry, but don't make a move first. Otherwise, they will kill you. Don't worry. I will let you go over later and kill the minotaur." When Qingyun heard this, he calmed down. "Ha ha! What a peerless beauty!" The minotaur laughed. "Remember to keep your promise," Wang Tianshi said with a smile. The minotaur used the black chains as hands to tie up Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. Although they kept cursing and struggling, it was useless. At that moment, Mu Feng shouted, "Qingyun, you can move now." As he spoke, he let go of Qingyun. The furious Qingyun shot forward like an arrow that had been released from a bow. A few martial kings reacted and wanted to stop him. However, they realized that Qingyun could penetrate their bodies. It was the mysterious penetration divine art. Qingyun used the mysterious penetration divine art. After passing through the bodies of many martial kings, he struck the Minotaur's head with a royal-grade ghost suppression talisman. Boom! The Minotaur's head suddenly exploded and burned with flames. Everyone was dumbfounded. The martial kings and Xian realm warriors all wanted to kill Qin Yun. Chapter 450. Totem in the tomb. The moment the Ghost King flew out of the water, all the martial kings were stunned. There were many Ghost Kings, over 100 in total. Just as the martial kings were in a daze, Qin Yun carried the chained Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi and used the mysterious penetration divine art to charge towards the door. When the martial kings saw the Ghost King approaching, they looked at Qin Yun angrily. They wanted to kill him, but they realized that he had passed through the door and disappeared. No one expected that Zi Qingsheng's silly cousin would have such a strange ability to penetrate things at will. At this moment, Hong Ying felt a lot more at ease. If something really happened to Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi, he would feel guilty. After all, he couldn't let go of his conscience. At this moment, he was also with Old Lady Du and the others. Let's get out of here quickly. Hong Ying did not plan to enter the immortal tomb, so he quickly got up and flew away. The Ghost King had already attacked, and dozens of martial kings hurriedly blocked. Then, the Xian realm warriors opened the door. After Qin Yun passed through the door with Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi, he hurriedly took out a mysterious replenishing pill and ate it. Then, he helped them open the chains. He had used the mysterious penetration divine art continuously just now and had consumed a lot of energy. And after eating the mysterious replenishing pill, he could quickly replenish the energy of the Tao core. The mysterious replenishing pill was only effective for one Tao core and could quickly replenish one Tao core. Qin Yun had 3, so he could only recover 30%. However, this was still pretty good. He had almost used up all of it just now. The door is moving. They're coming in. Zi Qingsheng hurriedly said. She and Shui Tianzi really thought that they were done for. They never expected that Qin Yun would suddenly rush over and kill the Minotaur ghost soldier. Furthermore, he had even entered the immortal tomb. Qin Yun had saved them again. Shui Tianzi also knew that Qin Yun had consumed a lot of energy. She hurriedly supported him and said gently, "You rest first. Leave this to me and Qingsheng." The tomb was pitch black, but Qin Yun could roughly tell that it was a large hall through his mental energy. On the left and right walls of the hall, there were 9 doors. They were all quite far apart, and it was unknown where they led to. Let's choose any door. Zi Qingsheng took out her weapon. It was 2 long hooks and walked in front. While Shui Tianzi is supporting Qin Yun, she is also transferring energy into his body to help him recover quickly. The movement of the door became louder and louder, as if it would open at any moment. Zi Qingsheng quickly arrived in front of a door. After opening it, a dense and cold aura of death overflowed from inside, causing her to choke and retreat. It should be very dangerous inside. Should we go in? Zi Qingsheng was burning with anxiety as she looked at the door. If the door was opened, then a large group of martial kings and ghost kings would come in. They would definitely be captured. Go in, Qin Yun said. Zi Qingsheng walked in front, while Shui Tianzi supported Qin Yun and followed closely behind. After they entered, Zi Qingsheng hurriedly closed the stone door. This way, no one would know which door they had entered. Boom! Not long after they entered, the giant red door outside was blasted open. Waves of berserk energy surged in. Outside, the Martial King and the Ghost King were engaged in an intense battle. A group of Xianwu Realm and Spirit Martial Realm martial artists all rushed in. They were all injured, and some of them were badly mutilated. Outside, there were also some corpses. They were all killed by the Ghost King. They hated that idiot cousin of theirs to the core. The Martial Kings also entered the pitch-black hall one after another. The Ghost Kings did not follow them in. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As for the Martial Kings, they looked at the strange Ghost Kings outside with lingering fear. Just now, 2 Martial Kings had died. Mufeng, it's all your fault. Why didn't you grab that fool? A martial king looked at Mu Feng and cursed. What does it have to do with me? That fool can easily penetrate your bodies. He has a very special ability. Grabbing him is like grabbing air. Mu Feng said with a sneer. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves. In order to open the door, you sacrificed 2 weak women and angered that fool. We could have discussed this matter properly. For example, we could have subdued that minotaur. As long as he doesn't die, the Ghost King won't come ashore. However, all of you listened to that bullshit heavenly master and did everything according to him. That's why you made such a big mistake. You just put the 2 women in such a miserable situation and did such a thing that is worse than a pig or a dog. You will suffer retribution. The martial kings were all infuriated. They wanted to beat Mu Feng up, but they did not do so. The people of the Inscription Palace were not people they could fight. Furthermore, Mu Feng's status was very high. At this time, someone took out a glowing stone and illuminated the hall. They also saw that there were 9 doors on the left and right sides. Fool, they must have entered one of the doors. We must chase after them and let them die a horrible death. Wang Tian sure said angrily. He had also suffered heavy injuries and had lost an arm. There are a total of 18 doors. We will split into 18 groups and enter. A bloodline martial king said. Mu Feng said with a frown, I don't even know what dangers there are in here. We should gather together and not separate like this. Otherwise, if we encounter danger and don't have enough strength to fight back, we might die here. Even the Ghost King doesn't dare to enter. It can be seen that it's very safe inside. That's right. If you're afraid of death, then don't go in. Mu Feng, you can't be worried that we'll kill that fool, right? That fool tricked us and earned more than 10 billion purple coins for you. Are you planning to join hands with him in the future and continue swindling other people's purple coins? Damn fatty, your Inscription Palace is too sinister. Many martial kings criticized him. Mu Feng curled his lips and said, Don't slander me. All right, do whatever you want. Anyway, I'm not going in. I'm very afraid of death. Mu Feng really did not want to go in. Furthermore, he took out a very comfortable rocking chair and sat on it. Not long after, they split into 18 teams. Each team had 8 or 9 people. There were at least 2 martial kings, and the rest were at the Xian martial realm and the spirit martial realm. They entered the stone doors on both sides of the lobby. Mu Feng only hoped that Qin Yun could escape this calamity. After Zi Qingsheng and company entered the door, they quickly jogged forward. Qin Yun also released the puppet he had previously refined. He did not have the totem runes needed to refine puppets, but he had the mysterious puppet star runes. He refined the puppet star runes into a talisman and stuck it on the back of an Iron Man. He could control the Iron Man to run. The iron puppet ran at the front. If there was any danger, they would know from behind. The passageway was very long, and it was unknown where it led to. Qin Yun and company did not advance very fast. Along the way, they were all nervous and worried and did not say anything. After 6 hours, they finally walked out of the pitch-black passageway and arrived at a very large stone room. Shui Tianzi took out a glowing stone, and after illuminating the stone room, she said with a frown, There's no door. It's a dead end. Qin Yun said, There's a formation there. The stone room was made of pitch-black stone bricks, and the walls were also pitch-black. There was no way to see any formation. However, Qin Yun could feel it. He hurriedly walked to the middle of the stone room and pressed his hand on the ground. He injected his mental energy, and since that he could control the activation of the formation, so he hurriedly activated it. A white circle appeared on the ground in the middle of the stone room. Come in, Qin Yun shouted anxiously. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi also quickly walked to Qin Yun's side. It's a teleportation array. After Qin Yun said that, he activated the teleportation array. Their eyes flashed, and they appeared in a huge tomb chamber. There was a faint red light inside. Qin Yun could not help but be alarmed because this place was very similar to the bottom of the Tian Shao Imperial Tomb. However, the coffins of the Tian Shao Imperial Tomb were all in many small rooms. As for the jade coffins in this place, they were directly placed out. The jade coffins were exactly the same as the ones in the Tian Shao imperial tomb. It's a very large tomb. There should be at least 10,000 jade coffins. Zi Qingsheng floated above and looked around. She took a deep breath. Qingyun walked toward the jade coffin and pushed it open forcefully. He saw a skeleton inside. Could it be that all the dead people under the Tian Shao imperial tomb have been teleported here? Qingyun guessed inwardly. He believed that it was extremely likely. He opened a few jade coffins in a row. There were dead people inside, and there was nothing else on their bodies. It was difficult to determine the identity of the dead. However, they could see the cultivation of the deceased. The jade coffins they opened were all at the outside, and they were only at the martial body realm. As for the ones closer to the inside, they were at the martial Dao realm. Shui Tianzi was standing by the wall in the distance. Holding a glowing stone, she shouted softly, "Little brother Yun, quickly come over and take a look. There seems to be a totem here." Qin Yun and Zi Qingsheng closed the lid of the coffin and flew over. Indeed, the stone wall that Shui Tianzi had illuminated was engraved with totem runes. However, it was not very clear. "Can you tell what kind of totem runes it is?" Zi Qingsheng asked curiously. Shui Tianzi shook her head and said, "Anyway, I can't tell what kind of totem it is. It's too blurry, and some of the details have been lost. Furthermore, this totem seems to be very big." Qin Yun stood a little further away. More than 10 meters away from the wall, he could see all the totem runes. It seems to be the totem of a bird. He asked Mo if she was willing to be seen by Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. She considered for a moment and agreed to go out. Thus, he let Mo come out of the storage space. The moment Mo came out, she shouted, "This is a very powerful bird. It can be in existence on the same level as the heavenly lion. It specializes in dealing with dragons." When Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi saw such a cute and beautiful fairy in Qin Yun's palm, they were immediately alarmed. They could tell at a glance that it was a fairy. Even in the martial desolate land, this kind of fairy was very famous because they could allow people to obtain totems. "Someone's coming." Qin Yun was suddenly alarmed. He hurriedly kept Mo and ran towards Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. He held their lily-white hands tightly, and at the same time, he used his shadow force to hide in the darkness. Chapter 451. Zombie King. When Qin Yun and company saw these people, they did not dare to breathe heavily. They were worried that they would be discovered. That was because among the 8 of them, 2 were martial kings, 3 were at the Xian realm, and the rest were at the spirit realm. This kind of strength was not something Qin Yun and company could deal with. "Wang Tianshi, what kind of tomb is this? Why are the people in the coffins so low in cultivation?" A martial king opened a few coffins and said with a frown, "Isn't this an immortal tomb? There should be immortal corpses here." Wang Tianshi took a look and said, "These people were the ones who helped build this immortal tomb back then. From the outside to the inside, these coffins should be getting stronger and stronger. Let's go to the middle and take a look. There might be martial king corpses there." Qin Yun could not help but admire Wang Tianshi. He knew quite a lot about these things. What he was more concerned about were the totem runes on the wall. That was because Mo had said that she could get the totem down. Wang Tianshi and company went to the middle and opened a few coffins. They are indeed martial kings. Furthermore, their weapons are all Dao artifacts. "Ha ha! We finally found something good." A martial king picked up a large saber and laughed happily. Just as the 2 martial kings were feeling very happy, a few waves of black gas suddenly gushed out from the coffins. The corpses inside actually moved. This scared Wang Tianshi so much that he immediately screamed, "Quickly get rid of them. These things have turned into zombie kings. Be careful." At that moment, Qin Yun felt the 2 women holding his hands tightly. They seemed to be frightened as well. Zombie King. This is refined using the ancient corpse refining technique. It's mainly used to guard the tomb. Shui Tianzi sent a voice transmission to Qin Yun. This is equivalent to refining a dead expert into a berserk puppet. Qin Yun was secretly alarmed. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. He looked not far away and saw the two martial kings fighting with the two zombie kings. Hoo. From the very beginning, the martial kings used extremely strong power to fight. They created waves of energy that overturned many coffins. The corpses inside were all stronger. After the coffin rolled, the corpses also fell out. It was as if they had been awakened by some kind of power. They immediately stood up and chased after Wang Tianshi and the others. The two martial kings faced as many as 6 zombie kings. As for Wang Tianshi and the others in the Xian realm, they faced dozens of other zombies. They were no match for him at all, so they could only flee. Wang Tianshi, quickly think of a way. If this goes on, we will all die. A martial king shouted. There's no other way. I can only run. Wang Tianshi also felt despair. In this situation, we can't even open the formation and leave. Qin Yun was still blaming himself for not opening the coffin lid in the middle to obtain the Tao artifact. Now, he was secretly glad that he hadn't done that. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. If they were to face the zombie king, they would probably be killed in a single move. The huge tomb chamber was immediately enveloped by a series of rumbling sounds and a violent gust of wind. The battle between the zombie king and the martial king had already knocked over many jade coffins and sent them flying to the side. Some of the jade coffins were even smashed to pieces. Although Qin Yun and company did not directly face the zombies, they would still be in danger if this continued. This tomb chamber was sealed. If they wanted to leave, they could only use the teleportation formation over there. However, in the current situation, it was impossible to activate the teleportation formation. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi were also extremely nervous. Their lily-white hands that were holding on to Qin Yun were sweating profusely. If they were discovered by the zombie king, there would only be death for them. Let's take a look first. Maybe those zombies won't be able to discover us. Qin Yun sent a sound transmission to the two girls. Just as he finished speaking, for some reason, many of the glowing stones on the ceiling of the huge tomb chamber suddenly lit up. Under the intense light, Qin Yun and company, who were hiding by the wall, were also exposed. Wang Tianshi also saw it and shouted, "Damned idiots, it's you guys. I'm going to kill you." The two martial kings were unable to divert their attention because they were fighting with the 6 zombie kings. Qin Yun gritted his teeth and hurriedly brought Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi with him. He used the penetration divine art and passed through the wall. Originally, he thought that he would have to pass through for a period of time. He didn't expect that he would arrive at a passageway in an instant. This passageway was 5 to 6 meters wide. It was extremely dark and there was no light at all. Is it safe? Shui Tianzi took out a glowing stone. After illuminating it, she saw Qin Yun lying limply on the ground. She hurriedly channeled her energy to help him recover. Zi Qingsheng said anxiously, "No, Tianzi, take good care of him. Leave this to me." She took out a pair of long hooks and rushed to the other side of the passage. There were actually zombies in this passageway. Judging from the intensity of their auras, they were at the spirit realm. Water Fairy, quickly go and help Sister Steam Bun. I can do it myself. Qin Yun looked at Zi Qingsheng and saw her hook onto the zombie's throat. Then a ball of purplish gold light exploded out and the neck exploded. Shui Tianzi said with a frown, "Qingsheng can handle it for the time being. I'll help you recover first." A pair of purplish gold wings appeared on Zi Qingsheng's back. They constantly flapped, creating a strong gust of wind that blew the zombies back. It should be the participants in the construction of this tomb. They all died here and were then refined as zombies in batches. Zi Qingqing's expression was solemn as she constantly forced the zombies to retreat. The zombies were all at the spirit realm, and there were more than 100 of them. Fortunately, these zombies did not know how to use their powerful strength to fight. They only knew how to continuously attack and then randomly bite. Only the zombie kings had the awareness to fight. The zombie's body was extremely strong, and it was very difficult to deal with. Zi Qingsheng could only force the zombies that were about to charge over to retreat. If she fought them one by one, the zombies would run over. As Qin Yun's cultivation was too low, every time he used the penetration divine art, it would consume a lot of energy. Fortunately, he had Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi by his side to protect him. Otherwise, he would be in great danger after using it. An hour later, Qin Yun had recovered to 60 to 70%. Water Fairy, quickly go and help her. Qin Yun hurriedly shouted, quickly kill those zombies. Shui Tianzi took out 2 swords and charged at a zombie. She stabbed several times, but although she could penetrate the zombie's body, she could not kill it. Decapitate! Zi Qingshang shouted. At that moment, Qin Yun took out an evil suppression talisman and threw it over. When the evil suppression talisman landed in the midst of the zombie horde, it caused the zombies to let out a series of howls. Their bodies constantly emitted black gas, as if they were being corroded. The effect is not bad. Qin Yun never expected that the evil suppression talisman would be so useful against zombies. The group of zombies' bodies were emitting smoke, and they were also frozen by the evil suppression talisman. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi hurriedly rushed over and used an extremely powerful force to destroy the zombie's head. It didn't take long for nearly 200 zombies to be wiped out. Brother Yun, what talisman is that? It's really effective. Shui Tianzi exclaimed as she wiped the sweat off her face and revealed a smile. Zi Qingsheng said, that's called the evil suppression talisman. It's very useful against ghost beasts. I never thought that it would also be useful against zombies. Back then, she had helped Qin Yun refine quite a few evil suppression talismans. Qin Yun looked at the 2 ends of the passageway and could not see the end. He said, this passageway seems to be very secretive. What exactly is its use? I don't know. Let's take a look. Shui Tianzi looked at the 2 sides of the passageway and said, which way should we go? The direction where the zombies are coming from. Qin Yun pointed and said. Shui Tianzi held 2 evil suppression talismans and walked at the front, while Zi Qingsheng followed behind. Qin Yun, who was in the middle, was also the safest. Not long after, they saw the end. The passageway was not very long. When they saw the end, their nerves tensed up. That was because there was a corpse at the end. The corpse's hands and feet were shackled with golden shackles. The chains of the shackles were embedded into the wall and were extremely firm. Looks like a lot of things happened when we were building the tomb. Qin Yun said, I wonder if this fellow is the zombie king? Zi Qingsheng said with a frown, it's an old man. He looks like he's dead. The old man wore coarse hemp clothes, and his eyes were tightly closed. There were some wrinkles on his grayish-black face, and his short hair was slightly white. He had a beard on his chin, and his body was thin. Although he was dead, he gave off a very strong feeling. Just as Qin Yun was about to go over, the old man suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of red eyes. Qin Yun screamed in fright and threw a few talismans at him. However, it was useless. The old man was still looking at him with a pair of red eyes. This is the zombie king, run. Shui Tianzi pulled Qin Yun and hurriedly ran. Don't run. I'm human. The old man's voice was very weak, but it could be heard clearly in the passageway. Shui Tianzi hurriedly stopped and ran back with Qin Yun. The 3 of them were extremely shocked because this tomb had been built for a very long time. There was actually someone who could survive until now. Are you a good person or a bad person? Zi Qingsheng asked hurriedly. That depends on what kind of people are good and bad in your eyes. The old man smiled. After so many years, I wonder what kind of people are good and bad in the eyes of humans. If you don't kill us or harm us, then you're not a bad person, Qin Yun said. The old man laughed self-deprecatingly. With my current state, how can I harm you? Qin Yun said, the thing that shackled you is very powerful. It can seal your power and make you not have the slightest bit of power aura. It's even absorbing your power, but you still lived for many years. I can't tell that you're so weak, but you actually know so much. The old man was slightly shocked and then asked, are you all from the Martial Desolate? What's the situation with the 9 suns now? Have the 9 suns fallen? Qin Yun and the 2 girls were astonished when they heard this. the 9 suns could actually fall. Chapter 452. Ancient inscription master Qin Yun was now even more curious about the old man's identity. To think that so many years ago, he predicted that the 9 suns would fall. Little brother Yun, let's go. I feel that he is very dangerous. Shui Tianzi saw that Qin Yun was about to walk over and immediately pulled him back vigilantly. The old man sighed and said, "The 9 suns will eventually fall." Zi Qingsheng frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" The old man smiled. "It seems that you still don't know about this. In that case, I haven't been locked up here for long." "Senior, why did the 9 suns fall?" pressed Qin Yun. "It's all because some people have been coveting the power of the 9 suns and want to completely control them." The old man laughed. What those fellows didn't expect was that the 9 suns would actually release their own sun soul. If the sun soul falls into the 9 desolate, as long as it is not found and not devoured, then the 9 suns will be fine. Qin Yun suddenly thought of the sun soul he had obtained. It was just a very large pearl. He did not know how to use the power of the sun soul. "Senior, why are you locked up here?" Shui Tianzi looked around. "You're actually still alive after being locked up in this kind of place." The old man said with a smile, "I have a martial spirit called Sleeping Martial Spirit. It can make me fall into a deep sleep, like a dead person." Qin Yun felt that the elder was not bad, but he could not be sure. "Senior, there's a tomb on the other side of this wall. There are quite a few zombie kings inside. How should we deal with them?" Qin Yun asked. "If we want to leave, we have to pass through that tomb." Zi Qingchang said, "We don't have the sleeping martial spirit, so we can't stay here for long." The old man said, "Young man, did you just throw the ghost-suppressing talisman? It's not a problem to deal with ordinary zombies, but it's still not enough to deal with a zombie king. If I had a stronger evil suppression talisman, it wouldn't be a problem." Qin Yun frowned and asked, "Will Xian talismans work?" The old man said, "It should be enough. Do you have it?" "No, but I can refine it now." Qin Yun could even refine Xian artifacts, let alone Xian talismans. Just when he felt that it was possible, he remembered that he didn't have the ghost-suppressing Xian rune. "This is bad. I only have high-grade spirit marks. I don't have any ghost-suppressing Xian runes." Qin Yun patted his head and sighed. The old man said in surprise, "I didn't expect you to be an inscription master. Actually, there are no levels to runes. It's just that inscription masters wanted more people to learn it, so they simplified the originally complicated runes. After simplifying the runes, the power will also be weakened by a lot. However, the advantage is that it will make it easier for beginners to master. Then, step by step, they will slowly master the complex and profound runes." Qin Yun said with a frown, "Senior, are you saying that you can evolve spirit marks into Xian marks?" "Yes. However, this required an extremely high level of comprehension. There are also many inscription masters who, by comprehending low-level runes, constantly refine low-level runes and turn them into high-level runes. This is a method of practicing inscription." Qin Yun had never thought of it in the past. Now that he heard it, he was greatly inspired. "Senior, are you an inscription master?" Zi Qingsheng quickly asked. The old man laughed and said, "That's right, I am a Dao inscription master." A Dao inscription master was also very powerful. This caused Qin Yun and company to be greatly alarmed. For an ancient Dao inscription master like him, the runes he grasped were very strong. The old man said, "The people in the tomb next door are all from a Long family. They came from the Spirit Desolate and were appointed to build this huge, immortal tomb here. Later on, during the construction process, many things happened, causing many people to die." When Shui Tianzi heard this, she immediately asked, "Is it the Long family with dragon bloodline?" The old man nodded and said, "That's right. Because they have a rare dragon bloodline, after they die, they will become zombies. Before that, they were forced to eat a type of zombie evil pill. After they die, they will become zombies." "Are there really immortals buried in the immortal tomb?" Qin Yun asked. This was also a mystery in his heart. The masters of the immortal tomb are basically all close relatives of the immortal desolate immortal emperor, or those who have a good relationship with the immortal emperor. The old man's eyes were filled with helplessness. Even the people beside the immortal emperor cannot escape the fate of death. Zi Qingcheng glanced at Qin Yun and asked, "Senior, have you heard of the immortal graveyard diagram? Since there are many immortal tombs here, what kind of immortal tomb does the immortal graveyard diagram refer to? Who is the person buried inside to the immortal emperor?" When the old man heard about the immortal graveyard diagram, his expression changed and he did not immediately answer. Qin Yun only knew that it was the place where Mog's daughter was buried, and it had a lot to do with Siekaru. The person buried in the immortal graveyard diagram should be the daughter of the immortal emperor. The old man slowly said, "Back then, because of this daughter of his, many powerful immortals died in the immortal desolate, and they were all buried here." Qin Yun said with a frown, "The daughter of the immortal emperor? She shouldn't have died so easily, right?" The old man's eyes were filled with memories as he said, "It's a long story. The immortal emperor had many children, but he had a daughter who was extremely extraordinary. She was born from the immortal emperor and Mog. Later on, when the other powerful martial immortals of the immortal desolate found out, they went to suppress the immortal emperor. Even the relatives of the immortal emperor became enemies with the immortal emperor. In the end, there was a tragic war. In the end, the immortal emperor's daughter died, and the immortal desolate became peaceful. That's why the immortal emperor built the immortal tomb here. This way, he wouldn't be harassed by the people of the immortal desolate and spirit desolate, because they wouldn't be able to come to the martial desolate. Qin Yun said, "However, there are spatial cracks between the magical desolate and the beast desolate. The magical desolate annexed the beast desolate." When the old man heard this, he said with a grave expression, "I heard that the immortal emperor obtained a divine artifact called the Nine-Sun Divine Spirit, and Mog obtained another divine artifact called the Nine-In Divine Spirit. Therefore, the daughter they gave birth to possessed an extremely heaven-defying immortal devil body. It is said that this can bring disaster to the immortal desolate, which is why it caused such a calamity. When the immortal emperor's daughter was born, the Nine-Yang Divine Spirit and the Nine-In Divine Spirit also became burial items. The Nine-Yang Divine Spirit was in Qin Yun's hands. Now, he was certain that Siekaru was the daughter of the immortal emperor. The old man said again, "The immortal devil body is extremely powerful and will never be destroyed. I'm not too sure about the specifics. In short, we were not responsible for building that immortal tomb." Zi Qingcheng looked around and asked, "Then, Senior, who is the owner of this immortal tomb that you built? It's actually in a desolate domain, and it's a very large one at that." The old man shook his head and said, "I don't know who is buried in this immortal tomb that we built. I only know that it's a relative of the immortal emperor, because after we finished building this tomb, we would inexplicably die. Later on, someone would come in and bury the dead immortals here." Shui Tianzi said with a frown, "This immortal emperor is not a good person either. He actually treats human life like grass." The old man said with a sneer, "Back then, there was a rumor that the immortal emperor killed his own daughter in order to protect himself, because he was worried that his dead daughter would turn into a powerful zombie. He had no choice but to use the Nine-Yang Divine Spirit to suppress it and seal it here. There are also rumors that the relatives of the immortal emperor buried here were also killed by the immortal emperor. If they become powerful zombies, they will only be a scourge to the martial desolate. As for whether it's true or not, I don't know. I only know that the person who commissioned us to build the immortal tomb came from the spirit desolate and obeyed the orders of the immortal emperor. Later on, he killed all the people who participated in the construction of the immortal tomb. Because I made a mistake at that time, I was imprisoned here. The zombies you just killed were all my subordinates." The words Divine Inscription Palace suddenly appeared in Qin Yun's mind. He could not help but suspect that the Divine Inscription Palace was in charge of this matter back then. After all, the Divine Inscription Palace came from the Spirit Desolate, and after many years of development, they became one of the overlords of the Martial Desolate. Zi Qingcheng said, "Qin Yun, do you have a way to refine Xian talismans? Whether or not we can get out will depend on you. Even if I can, it will take a long time." Qin Yun looked at the old man and asked, "Senior, do you have the ghost-suppressing Xian rune?" The old man said, "Of course I do. It's just that with my current appearance, I can't give it to you." Qin Yun thought for a moment and said, "Senior, if we release you, can you bring us out?" The old man said with a smile, "I'm not afraid of those zombie kings when they're alive, let alone dead ones. But how can we trust you? What if we let you out and you kill us?" Qin Yun said warily, "Brat, although I'm trapped here, it's still very easy for me to kill all of you." The old man laughed loudly. At the same time, his eyes emitted a red light before shooting out two strong beams of light that struck the wall. Boom! The wall was struck until it emitted a loud bang and began to tremble violently. Qin Yun said with some fear, "Isn't your power sealed? How can you still unleash such a strong power?" Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi could also tell that the aura of that power belonged to a martial king. "This is what I'm capable of. Of course, I don't expect you to release me. With just you guys, you're still too far away." The old man smiled and said, "Brat, you're only at the second or third level of the martial Dao realm, right? You still want to refine Xian talismans? You're simply dreaming. If those two girls knew how to craft talismans, I would believe them more." Qin Yun curled his lips and said, "Don't look down on me." The old man laughed out loud and said, "It's not that I'm looking down on you, but it's against common sense. With your energy at the second or third level of the martial Dao realm, can you create Xian talismans?" "Senior, what if I can release you?" Qin Yun said with a serious expression. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi did not believe that Qin Yun would be able to save the powerful old man. The old man said with a smile, "If you can release me, I'll take you to the Tomb Master's tomb. Then we'll split the contents equally. Don't worry, I'll sign a soul contract with you first. That way, you won't have to worry about me going back on my word." With how huge this tomb was, it would definitely not be easy to find the Tomb Master's tomb. Chapter 453. Mysterious Sword Cultivator. When Qin Yun heard about signing a soul contract, he felt that it was more reliable. This kind of contract secret technique was very binding. If it was really signed, then it would be completely trustworthy. "All right, let's sign that soul contract now." Qin Yun walked over and said, although the old man was trapped here, he could still use a very strong power to attack. If he wanted to kill Qin Yun and company, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. "Kid, can you let me regain my freedom? I really don't believe that you have the ability to do so." The old man laughed, but he still signed a soul contract with Qin Yun. He and Qin Yun would each separate a strand of soul power to fuse together. When fusing, they would reach the contents of the contract. Then, they would separate the strand of soul power and return to their respective souls. The content of the contract was that after Qin Yun rescued the old man could not harm them. Furthermore, he had to protect them to the tomb owner's tomb and split the treasures inside equally. Furthermore, he had to protect them as they left the desolate domain. The old man's name was Wu Mingxiu. When he reported his name, Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi thought back, but they had never heard of this name. "Kid, tell me, how do you plan to release me? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but the thing that trapped me is very powerful. It's a royal gray Dao artifact. Even if there were a few of me, I wouldn't be able to open this thing." Wu Mingxiu said, "Generally speaking, it was already very good to have a low-grade Dao artifact. However, this royal gray Dao artifact was used to lock people up. It was simply a waste of a heavenly treasure." Qin Yun released Mo and asked her to take a look at the chains. When Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi saw this cute and beautiful little fairy again, they wanted to place her in their palms and tease her for a while. This little thing, Is it a fairy? Wu Mingxiu said in surprise. My goodness, this kind of fairy has never acknowledged humans, but you have a very good relationship with her. This is truly rare. Shui Tianzi said softly. The fairies can bring totems to people, but humans can only use forced methods to make the fairies release their totems. Zi Qingcheng asked, Qingyun, what's going on with this fairy of yours? It seems to be very familiar with you. I think it depends on the person. I am handsome and also a good person, so the fairy willingly followed me. Qingyun said with a chuckle. Mo appeared in front of so many people and felt somewhat nervous. However, she trusted Qingyun very much. She believed that Qingyun would not let her be harmed, so she mustered her courage and flew to the chain to check the runes inside. Humans did not know much about fairies. They only knew that fairies could help humans obtain totems. At most, he only knew that the chief elven priestess could help totems evolve. Most people did not know that elves could repair or destroy runes. After taking a look, Mo released a gentle light that shot into the shackles. She had been busy for almost an hour, flying back and forth on a few chains. She seemed a little tired. It's done. After she finished speaking, she flew back to Qingyun and returned to the storage space. When Wu Mingxiu felt that his powerful strength was no longer sealed, he could not help but be surprised. Then, with a forceful tug, he tore the shackles apart. Soon, he completely broke free from the shackles that had bound his hands and feet for many years. I'm free. Wu Mingxiu still couldn't believe it. Senior Wu, you were very sure that I wouldn't be able to open it. Qingyun said with a smile. All right, I made a mistake. Wu Mingxiu laughed. Your cultivation isn't strong, but you have two powerful beauties accompanying you. I shouldn't have underestimated you. He also knew that the one who had helped him escape was that magical fairy. It was actually able to destroy the runes inside the Tao artifact. Senior, there are several zombie kings and martial kings on the other side of the wall. Do we still need to return to that place? Zi Qingxin was also very happy as she asked. Wu Mingxiu said, Of course we have to go back. We have to leave through that tomb. With that, he placed his hand on the wall and pushed with great force. He actually pushed open a door. After Wu Mingxiu pushed open the stone wall, Qingyun and company sensed a thick zombie aura. Is this senior reliable? Shui Tianzi immediately held Qingyun's hand tightly and said worriedly, It should be reliable. After all, to be able to live for so long, he must have some skills. Qingyun said, Let's go out and take a look. Zi Qingcheng walked in front and said, If anything happens, I'll block it for a while. Tianzi, you just need to run with Qingyun. Sister Steam Bun, don't say such words. If you want to run, we'll run together. Qingyun hurriedly walked forward and held her delicate hand tightly. After they followed Wu Mingxiu to the spacious tomb, they saw that it was a mess. All the jade coffins were in a mess, and many of them had turned into fragments. The two martial kings, Wang Tianshi and company, were surrounded by zombies. The most terrifying thing was that the two martial kings' abdomens were dripping with blood. That was because their Tao cores had been taken out and their hands and feet had been torn off and bitten by the zombie king. Wang Tianshi and company were severely injured and were about to be eaten by the zombies. The moment Wu Mingxiu appeared, the zombies looked over. Wang Tianshi also saw Qingyun and two peerless beauties walking out hand in hand. He hated himself to death because he was about to be killed while Qingyun was so carefree and happy. Idiot, hurry up and accompany me in death. It's all your fault, you bastard. Wang Tianshi's voice was filled with endless resentment. None of my business, Qingyun said coldly. You bastard, you've used me as a sacrifice time and time again. You deserve to die. Time and time again? Wang Tianshi suddenly thought of something and realized that the fool was Qingyun. Just as he was about to say something, Wu Mingxiu flew over. His arm overflowed with a purplish gold light, and a sharp sword suddenly appeared in his hand. This sword looked very ordinary, but it exuded an incomparably cold, killing intent. It immediately enveloped the evil zombie aura inside. The spacious tomb chamber instantly turned ice cold. This was all because of the appearance of the sword in Wu Mingxiu's hand. Although Wu Mingxiu had been sealed for many years, it did not affect his performance. The speed at which he flew over was very fast, and the speed at which he brandished his sword was even faster. Qin Yun and company could not even see the moves he made when he brandished his sword. The zombies were killed and turned to dust. That's the origin sword. Qin Yun was alarmed as he whispered, "Sword cultivator?" Zi Qingsheng also looked at Qin Yun in astonishment. Qin Yun nodded because it was very similar to the aura of Xie Wufeng's sword. Of course, it was much more domineering than Xie Wufeng's sword. Shui Tianzi exclaimed, "This is almost extinct. Sword cultivator or Dao inscription master. This is too terrifying." Not long after, the zombies were all killed by Wu Mingxiu. As long as they were stabbed, the zombies would vaporize. It could be seen that a very strong power had been injected into their bodies. After the bodies of 2 of the zombie kings shattered, 2 beads fell. They should be the Dao cores of the 2 martial kings. The energy inside the Dao core was absorbed by Wu Mingxiu in an instant. Qin Yun hurriedly walked over and looked at the astonished Wang Tianshi. "You old dog, you let my blood go so easily back then. Now, you've finally received your retribution." Qin Yun stepped on Wang Tianshi's chest and said with a sneer. Wu Mingxiu walked over and said, "I want to take out his Dao core to recover his losses." With that, he reached his claw into Wang Tianshi's abdomen and took out a Dao core. Wait, just as Qin Yun finished shouting, the Dao core was instantly absorbed by Wu Mingxiu. "What's wrong?" Wu Mingxiu asked. "I want the martial spirit inside." "Forget it." Qin Yun curled his lips. His martial spirit is a ghost martial spirit. It's platinum rank, useless. Wu Mingxiu laughed. "Do you have enmity with him? I was almost killed by him a few times." There's a deep hatred. Qin Yun stepped on Wang Tianshi's face. After Wang Tianshi's Dao core was taken out, he was in pain and fear. He originally thought that he would die at the hands of the zombies, but he never expected that he would die at Qin Yun's hands. "Then let's kill him." Wang Tianshi looked into the distance, and with a wave of his hand, the 3 Dao artifacts were sucked over. He said, "It's been so many years, and they've been well preserved. I'll give them to you." Qin Yun was taken aback as he received a silver saber. "Don't kill me," Wang Tianshi wailed. Just as Qin Yun was about to slash Wang Tianshi to death, he saw Wu Mingxiu strike out with his palm. A burst of flames erupted and burned Wang Tianshi to ashes. This guy has been poisoned by the zombie poison. If his blood splatters on your body, it might bring you a lot of trouble. It's better to burn it yourself. Wu Mingxiu laughed. Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi also obtained a sword each. Although they were low-grade Dao tools, they were extremely happy. "Thank you, Senior Wu. Did you refine all these Dao tools?" Shui Tianzi asked. "Of course. You might not believe me, but these fellows used the Dao tools I refined to capture me." Wu Mingxiu laughed self-deprecatingly. "I reaped what I sowed." He absorbed a few Dao cores, and his complexion became much better. "Come, let's go to the Tomb Master's tomb. I also want to see who is buried in this tomb and what good things are there." Wu Mingxiu laughed loudly as he walked towards the teleportation array. Qin Yun shouted, "Wait, there's a totem here. I'll get the fairies to take it away." With that, he released, "Oh, M.O., Wu Mingxiu said. "That's only an incomplete totem of the 9th Heaven Sparrow. It's useless. The complete one should be in the main tomb." When Qin Yun heard that, he put away M.O., and hurriedly walked towards the teleportation array. Shui Tianzi and Zi Qingsheng had just obtained a Dao artifact and were reluctant to keep it in their storage magic treasure. They held it tightly in their hands. Although they had not been refined, they could still use it temporarily. That was because this Dao artifact was refined by Wu Mingxiu. He could make the Dao artifact acknowledge Zi Qingsheng and Shui Tianzi. After the teleportation array was activated, Qin Yun and company returned to the passageway from before. Wu Mingxiu was very familiar with this place. The light carriage brought Qin Yun back the way they came. "Are we going to the lobby outside?" Qin Yun asked. Chapter 454. Dao Talisman Shui Tianzi said, "It's not safe at all. Those zombie kings are so terrifying. They are as powerful as the Ghost King. If not for little brother Yun carrying us and running fast, we would have died long ago. At least you guys are still alive. But then again, how many people entered the immortal tomb?" Wu Mingxiu asked. Qin Yun roughly explained the number of people, causing Wu Mingxiu to frown inwardly. "The experts of the 3 desolate lands have all come. If they can't return, then the power of the major powers will decline." Zi Qingshang said. Wu Mingxiu said, "Is that all Desolate 3 has? The bloodline noble clans occupy a lot of resources. They will definitely have many martial kings. And you must understand that this is just an active faction of power in Arid Triad. This number of martial kings was just the tip of the iceberg for Arid Triad. None of the most powerful martial emperors are here." Wu Mingxiu said. "Martial emperor? Is there really a fellow at this level?" Qin Yun exclaimed. "That's an existence beyond the martial king realm. Of course there is. This kind of fellow can also enter the spirit desolate. It's just that he doesn't want to be controlled by others, so he continues to stay in the 3 desolate lands." Wu Mingxiu said, "There are many half-immortals in the spirit desolate. That is the most terrifying. What kind of strength do I have to reach in order to go to the spirit desolate?" Shui Tianzi yearned for the spirit desolate. After all, that was an existence close to immortals. Actually, martial kings can also go. It all depends on whether or not they have enough perseverance to pass through the great Tao of spirit desolate. In any case, I don't want to go to the spirit desolate right now. Otherwise, I would have gone long ago," Wu Mingxiu said with a smile. Zi Qingshang exclaimed, "Senior, could you be a martial emperor?" Wu Mingxiu only smiled without saying a word. Not long after, they walked out of the door and arrived at the lobby outside. They saw Mu Feng comfortably lying on a rocking chair. When Mu Feng saw Qin Yun and company come out, he jumped up in surprise. "You all, didn't you meet anyone else inside?" Mu Feng hurriedly asked before looking at Wu Mingxiu. Wu Mingxiu looked like a sloppy old man. He did not have much of an aura on his body and had a faint smile on his face. No matter how one looked at it, he did not look like an expert. Mu Feng could not tell how strong Wu Mingxiu was. He only felt that it was strange. Qin Yun and company had clearly entered, but when they came out, there was an old man. "Steward Mu, are Grandma Du and the others all right?" Zi Qingsheng quickly asked. "The Hong Ying Martial King has escaped with them. They should still be in the desolate domain. After all, with Hong Ying's strength alone, he is unable to open a passage out." Mu Feng looked at Wu Mingxiu with a smile and asked, "Who is this senior?" Wu Mingxiu laughed. "I am a rotten old man." "Are you from the Inscription Palace?" Mu Feng hurriedly nodded. "I never thought that the bloodline warriors of the Divine Inscription Palace would come to such a dangerous place." Wu Mingxiu's words surprised Qin Yun and company. This Mu Feng was actually a bloodline martial artist. Qin Yun did not know if his heavenly lion bloodline had been seen through. "Senior, you really have good eyesight. Could it be that you are from the Long family?" Mu Feng smiled as he recalled that the little swindler Xiao Yuanmei said that the Long family's people had already entered. He didn't believe it at first, but now he was starting to believe it. Wu Mingxiu nodded. "I am from the Long family, but my surname is not Long." Mu Feng frowned as he pondered. "I remember that there are 3 surnames in the Long family: the Long family, the Xiao family, and the Wu family. I wonder which surname Senior is?" "Wu clan," Wu Mingxiu said. "Senior Wu, did you come alone? How did you enter this tomb?" Mu Feng asked curiously. "I used the teleportation array to come in, but I teleported to the wrong place. Fortunately, I met Qin Yun and was able to escape," Wu Mingxiu said with a smile. No matter what he said, he also told Qin Yun and company not to talk about his origins. Mu Feng was immediately pleasantly surprised. "Senior Wu, do you know where the main tomb is?" Wu Mingxiu laughed. "Of course I know. You want to go?" Mu Feng hurriedly nodded. "You can go, but you can't get anything," Wu Mingxiu said. "It's fine. I'm just going to take a look. I didn't expect to get anything from coming here," Mu Feng said with a smile. Wu Mingxiu also agreed to let Mu Feng follow him. After all, Mu Feng was at the Xian martial realm and was also a Xian inscription master. His strength was not bad. Mu Feng happily put away the chair and asked, "Which door is it to enter the main tomb?" Just as Wu Mingxiu was about to reply, a door on the right wall suddenly opened and a few people covered in wounds ran out. Amongst these people, 2 were bloodline martial kings, and the other 3 were the Xian realm. The moment they came out, they saw Zi Qingsheng, Shui Tianzi, and their foolish cousin, who had tricked them. "It's you guys." A bloodline martial king immediately said angrily, "Damned fool, I'll kill you." With that, he rushed over and shouted, "Mu Feng, go to the side." Another martial king also rushed over and shouted, "Be careful, don't hurt those 2 women. I want them to die even more miserably." If it weren't for them, the Oxhead ghost soldier wouldn't have died and would have been able to bring us safely into the main tomb. After the 2 martial kings and 3 Xian realm warriors flew over, Wu Mingxiu gave a low shout. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed a gust of angry wind. The purplish gold gale transformed into the shape of a dragon, emitting waves of dragon roars as it charged towards the few people who were charging over. Roar! The purplish gold gale immediately exploded, emitting a loud dragon's roar that shook the hall. Those people were also sent flying and crashed into the stone wall. Those people had also noticed Wu Mingxiu earlier. Because they could not sense his aura, they did not take him to heart. Who would have thought that this unassuming old man would be so terrifying? "Who are you?" One of the martial kings was terrified, but he still shouted angrily, "I don't even care who you are, so why do you care who I am? All you need to know is that I was the one who killed you." Wu Mingxiu smiled faintly and floated over. A bloodline martial king said angrily, "I'm from the Heavenly Eagle bloodline aristocrat family. If you kill me, it's equivalent to offending." Before he could finish speaking, Wu Mingxiu's hand shot out like lightning and reached into the martial king's body. Then, he pulled out a bloody pearl. What was even more terrifying was that Wu Mingxiu's finger had pierced into the martial king's throat and was crazily absorbing the martial king's inherited bloodline. In just a few moments, the martial king had been sucked dry. Wu Mingxiu's face originally had some wrinkles, but after he absorbed the pearl and devoured the inherited bloodline, the wrinkles had lessened a little. This scene caused Qin Yun and company to be alarmed. "You evil demon." The other martial king's expression changed drastically. He wanted to escape, but he was grabbed by Wu Mingxiu and sucked over. Wu Mingxiu chuckled, "Evil demon? You bloodline aristocrat families are no better than me. I know very well how many heartless things you have done. As far as I know, many of you bloodline disciples are unable to awaken your inherited bloodline. However, you have used an ancient evil technique to awaken your inherited bloodline by consuming a large amount of human blood or by soaking in a medicinal bath made from human blood." Mu Feng's entire body trembled when he heard this. He said, "I always thought that this was just a legend. I never expected it to be true. This is too terrifying." They used this method to maintain a large amount of bloodline inheritance. No wonder they are so powerful. Zi Qingsheng said, "Even in a bloodline aristocrat family, not everyone can awaken their bloodline. After using the ancient evil technique, everyone can awaken their bloodline. This kind of bloodline martial artist has one characteristic, and that is that they are very brutal." After Wu Mingxiu finished speaking, he grabbed the Dao core of the bloodline martial artist. Then, he sucked the martial king's blood dry. The remaining 3 Xian martial realm warriors were also bloodline warriors. Their fates were the same. Mu Feng felt a chill run down his spine as he said, "Senior Wu, I am also a bloodline martial artist. You won't suck me dry, right?" Wu Mingxiu said with a smile, "If I had that kind of thought, you would have turned into a corpse long ago." Mu Feng immediately felt a lot more at ease. However, he was still secretly afraid. These fellows have quite the ability to escape. I'll wait a little longer. Maybe someone else will come out alive. After Wu Mingxiu finished speaking, He sat on the ground and said with a smile, I need to replenish myself. If I encounter something powerful in the main tomb, I will have the strength to fight. The martial spirits of those experts could also replenish Wu Mingxiu's strength, so Qin Yun did not ask further. Wu Mingxiu had slept for so many years, so he must have consumed quite a bit of energy. If he could replenish himself, he would be able to handle the danger in the main tomb. The main tomb was where immortals were buried, so it was definitely not that simple. Mu Feng also took out a rocking chair and sat down, patiently waiting. Qin Yun, should we guess which door the next group of people will come out from? If we guess correctly, we'll get 100 million purple coins. How about it? Mu Feng said with a smile. What if both of us guess incorrectly? Qin Yun asked. Then no one needs to give it. Mu Feng said with a laugh. Since we have nothing better to do, we might as well have some fun. Qin Yun curled his lips and said, Forget it, I think it's quite boring. Wu Mingxiu said to Mu Feng, Little fatty, go out and catch a few ghost kings for me to replenish myself. How about it? This scared Mu Feng so much that he jumped up from his chair. Ghost King? Senior Wu, please spare me. If I go out to capture the Ghost King, I will only become its food. It was unknown where Wu Mingxiu took out a few black talismans and threw them to Qin Yun and company. One for each of you. As long as you hold it in your hands, the Ghost King will not dare to approach. Then you guys can join hands to capture it. Wu Mingxiu said, I will guard here and wait for others to come out. Qin Yun took a look at the black talisman and said in pleasant surprise, This is the Ghost Suppression Talisman. It has Dao runes carved on it. It's truly profound. Mu Feng's small eyes immediately widened. Senior Wu, so you're actually a Dao inscription master. Thought you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.